Chapter 498. Jim Master Shio raised his brush and wrote the word furnace, but when he opened his mouth, the first word he mentioned was prison. I'm guessing that the first word, prison, is perhaps the reason why you cultivate on the mental side. I'm not proficient in mental side cultivation, but I can feel that your soul strength possesses an extraordinary binding power. It's never wrong to spend more effort in this direction when cultivating. Thank you for the pointers, Jim Master. Luo Nan was very impressed by the word binding power that Jim Master Shio pointed out. This truly pointed out the typical characteristics of his soul strength. This was something he had been thinking about ever since he awakened yesterday. However, he had too many thoughts, so Jim Master Shio's words were much clearer and more precise. Jim Master Shio shook his head slightly. I'm just speaking thoughtlessly. After all, I'm still an outsider. You need to know what you're doing. However, I have to say that the word furnace is quite exquisite. He drew a circle around the word furnace in his own name. The original meaning of a furnace is an appliance used to store fire. It also has the meaning of smelting and cooking. When it comes to cultivation, there are many teachings on the foundation. It is also said to change the quality and nature, to refine the essence. This is the fundamental meaning that cultivators cannot avoid. He paused for a moment, then said softly, this is also the starting point of the great path to heaven. Luo Nan and Shuelei looked at each other. Jim Master Shio used to give lessons in the past. There was no lack of exaggerations within. Most of them were rhetorical expressions, so that they could remember them clearly. However, it seemed a bit abrupt to speak of the great path to heaven in plain language. Shuelei couldn't help but confirm, the great path to heaven. Jim Master Shio tossed his brush into the brush washer and watched the ink spread a second time. It's the same furnace. Firewood stoves, coal stoves, steam engines, atomic furnaces, and fusion reactors are all different. Can't one reach the heavens by ascending these steps? Shuelei sweated a bit. If it's a reactor, what's the difference between the extraordinaries that your society speaks of and a nuclear reactor? How can a human be able to operate energy of such a level? Not to mention that these people are perpetually youthful, rejuvenated, have thoughts that span 10,000 miles, can pierce through the void, and so on. A mere reactor may not be able to catch up. Jim Master Shio's hoarse voice somehow carried a sonorous tone. The present world is a flourishing age for cultivators. There are feasible, verifiable, and verifiable facts. This is enough to prove that there are no problems with our train of thought. There are no problems with our principles. There are just a few operational details. It's more realistic to ponder over some application methods. As for the matter of the furnace, it won't be too late to slowly research it after your potential has been fully unearthed and you can't find a path forward. Luo Nan mumbled his acknowledgement and immediately excused himself. Jim Master Shio suddenly spoke just as he was about to leave the study. Did you guys take the dynamo core from the Tai Chi bowl? Shuelei was a bit embarrassed. He shot a glance at Luo Nan and said hurriedly, yeah, I took it to repair. It's about to be fixed. Luo Nan shuddered. He turned his head to look at Jim Master Shio. Jim Master, do you know that it's the dynamo core? Jim Master Shio didn't give a direct answer. He just said, when I came back alone, I only brought this one souvenir. Since it's a souvenir, it doesn't matter if it's repaired or not. It was originally a defective product, just like us right now. Go get it. Us right now. Shuelei gave Luo Nan a meaningful glance at this time, but Luo Nan didn't pay attention to it. His mind was surging with an endless tide. He used to believe that Jim Master Shio was a great martial arts imparter hidden in the city. It was only today that he found out that Jim Master Shio had a considerable understanding of the inner world, of burners, and even of a secret object like the dynamo core. Why was this so? Luo Nan didn't care about other things, but when it came to the dynamo core, this strange creation that was inextricably linked to his parents, it was impossible for him to ignore it. Luo Nan's thoughts were a mess, and he simply stood at the door in a daze. But at this time, his wristband received a call, waking him up. Gym Master Xiao saw this and indicated that he could leave. Gym Master Xiao looked down at the ugly character Luo Nan had written. He had no intention of speaking. Luo Nan was conflicted for a moment, but in the end, his respect for Gym Master Xiao prevailed. He slowly turned around. At the same time, he lowered his head to look at the caller ID. It was Xie Junping. Luo Nan was just about to answer when he suddenly heard a voice. Luo Nan. Gym Master Xiao rarely called Luo Nan by his name ever since they met. Luo Nan was stunned for a moment. He hurriedly ended the call and turned around. Gym Master Xiao didn't even raise his head. He spoke in a dull voice, "You have a good grandfather. He opened up a vast space for you. You can't let him down." "Yes. Thank you, Gym Master." Gym Master Xiao really didn't speak anymore. He just stood there like a statue carved from withered wood. Shui Lei remained in the apartment, observing Gym Master Xiao's state. Luo Nan went out alone. He was still a bit absent-minded when Xie Junping called him again. "Where are you? Why aren't you picking up?" "I just left the Gym Master's house." "Oh, you're cultivating. Then you're still in the River Wu district. You haven't forgotten what day it is today, have you?" "I remember. Isn't your initiation ceremony at night?" "What time is it right now?" "Hee hee. Are you driving?" "I'm driving." Xie Junping's tone told Luo Nan that it wasn't a good thing. But Luo Nan had bodyguards following him at all times. He had just left the house, and Qin Ikuan was already following him. It would undoubtedly be the worst joke to say that he didn't drive. "Driving is fine. I'll let you run some errands. We have a particularly lively kid here, Di Weiwu. You know his adoptive father." "Hello. Hello. What's wrong? Did the signal get cut off?" "No, I'm listening." Luo Nan was just a bit stupefied by the coincidence. They were just talking about the dynamo core, and now Xie Junping was suddenly talking about a person closely related to it. Was Xia City evil? Di Weiwu's adoptive father. "Yes, worker Zhai. I know." Xie Junping coughed. "It's very simple. Worker Zhai will be attending the ceremony tonight, but he's working overtime on the weekend, so he can't come. Since you guys know each other, you might as well bring him back along the way." Bringing him back isn't a problem, but this can't be considered along the way. Worker Zhai's cross-border electronic city was located in the Xiqing district. Xie Junping's initiation ceremony was held in the Forest Wall district's orphanage, and the River Wu district just happened to be in between. If Luo Nan wanted to bring someone along, he would first have to walk back. If this could be considered along the way, then what about around the corner? Xie Junping continued to chuckle. "I understand. It's just that worker Zhai is too busy today. That kid Weiwu came up with a rotten idea. He wants you to go and get a high-level account. Go out into the field and pull his father out. I'll pay for the middle fees." "That's right." However, Luo Nan felt that this was more like the will of heaven. Luo Nan and his party arrived at the cross-border electronic city approximately 20 minutes later. It was the weekend, and this place was quite crowded. Business was bursting. While Luo Nan was in the car, he had already asked for the exclusive service of a designated maintenance technician. When he entered the maintenance hall, worker Zhai, who was busy at the open maintenance platform, immediately received the news. He raised his head and gazed into the distance. He saw Luo Nan and the others and made a "wait a moment" gesture through the air. Soon, a beautiful maintenance consultant walked over with quick steps. "Hello, Mr. Luo. Your exclusive service has been accepted. Worker Zhai still has some unfinished work to do. He invites you to wait a moment in the independent maintenance room." Luo Nan was already a frequent customer of the cross-border electronic city, and he had been looking for Worker Zhai all this time. The maintenance consultant had long since memorized Luo Nan's appearance. Her smile was like a flower. Luo Nan made an "okay" gesture toward the open maintenance platform and followed the maintenance consultant into maintenance room 245. Chi Nikun accompanied him by his side, and God stood guard outside. Ever since Luo Nan began learning engineering and mechanical design from Worker Zhai, he had come to this Worker Zhai's exclusive maintenance room more than once. He had personally operated many of the equipment inside. In this room, he possessed authority second only to the super administrator of the electronic city and Worker Zhai. Though the space was cramped, it was very intimate. After entering, he took the initiative to be the host. He opened the beverage box and delivered purified water to Chi Nikun and God, who stood outside the door. Then it was time to wait. Luo Nan was never afraid of having nothing to do here. He still had a few unfinished practical assignments assigned by Worker Zhai. There was even a semi-finished chip that Worker Zhai had left behind. However, Luo Nan had come today not only to complete Xia Juinping's request, but he also had an even more pressing matter to deal with. Chapter 499. Luo Nan sat cross-legged in the center of the spacious hall. He sensed that there was an enormous space of over 10,000 square meters without any support. It was completely transparent. Surrounding him were slowly rotating structural diagrams. Concise lines and symbols were used to indicate the internal structure and function of the machine, as well as the relationship between the various components. This spacious area was a virtual space set up on the psychic wave network through the Heir. Aside from the form that could be seen and felt, a portion of the supercomputing resources of the Xia City branch was borrowed to conduct a certain scale of analysis and calculation. There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. This computing space was charged based on the amount of supercomputing resources borrowed. The payment was extremely precious honor points. However, these minor details were no longer within the scope of Luo Nan's consideration. What he paid the most attention to right now was the tens of thousands of blueprints floating and rotating. A month ago, Luo Nan would have thought that these mechanical schematics were like a heavenly book. But now, they were completely devoid of any sense of jerkiness. This was not only because of his previous hard work, but also because of his large weight, high-intensity recognition, and understanding in a short period of time. These blueprints had a total of 2 sources. One source came from the process of Worker Zhai repairing the Tai Chi ball dynamo core over the past month. Worker Zhai combed through the dynamic structure and restored a portion that represented the possible direction of function. The second source was a bit further. It came from the spoils of war obtained from killing Jack during the conflict with Quantum Corporation. It was the Deep Sea Type 4 dynamo core. This item was originally going to be auctioned, but Xia City took note of its uniqueness and intercepted it. The branch never relaxed in their research during these 2 months. Some of the research methods they adopted overlapped with Worker Zhai's, so at least 2/3 of the blueprints were quite similar. Without a doubt, there was a fee for borrowing and reading this information. According to Luo Nan's understanding, the overlapped blueprints belonged to the functional structure of over 1,000 threads of varying thickness after the 3-layer structure of the dynamo core was fully unfolded. However, there were some special scenes within the Deep Sea Type 4 dynamo core that Worker Zhai was unable to comprehend at his level. These were the parts that involved the mutual interference between the mental and the material. From Luo Nan's current understanding, this included a portion of the Tower of Babel and Mount Buzhou. This was the core configuration that broke the barrier between the mental and the material. There was also a portion that involved a special structure that covered both the mental and material planes. When the Deep Sea Type 4 dynamo core was fully unfolded, there were some parts that could be felt, known, and measured on the material plane. There were also some parts that were built upon the foundation of the Tower of Babel and Mount Buzhou. This was something that scientific instruments could not detect. In terms of grade, the Deep Sea Type 4 should be at least one grade higher than the Tai Chi Ball dynamo core. But then again, Worker Zhai's research was limited by his cultivation. It was difficult for him to detect more details in terms of mental and material interference, so he had to take this into consideration. Unfortunately, Luo Nan didn't have the physical Deep Sea Type 4 dynamo core with him. He was unable to conduct field tests, so he could only use his memories from 2 months ago as a comparison. But 2 months ago, his insight and knowledge couldn't be compared to now, so there was still a lot of blank space to fill in. Also, Luo Nan could not keep the Luo. Luo Nan opened his eyes. He held the plastic bag between his index and middle fingers, holding the dynamo core before his eyes. Under the illumination of the iron cover, a mysterious luster flowed on the regular rhombohedron, attracting his soul. Machine. Under in. By. Under. Under the metal. And the regular, the that. Under. As under. The ceremony was very simple. There was nothing mysterious about it. As the protagonists, Xie Junping and Du Yong submitted their homework under the witness of the nannies, children, and some religious residents in the orphanage. Then, they were verified by Dean Vanta, the mentor of the order, and they were granted the identity of abstinence bearers in the order. President Wan Tao, on the other hand, announced the end of the ceremony after briefly explaining the concepts of a material nature and order. Luo Nan even felt that Dean Wan Tao wanted to use this opportunity to let the children of the orphanage enjoy a delicious meal prepared by a certain hedonist of Xia City. As for Xie Junping and Du Yong, they were quite satisfied. They had experienced enough of the most powerful mysterious elements in the test before they officially joined the church, and they had also achieved tangible results. Mysterious plus effective equals devout. This formula was applicable in the vast majority of circumstances. More importantly, it was fine as long as everyone was happy. The ceremony and banquet were very casual. Luo Nan had more private time. He felt that there were too many children at the banquet in the main hall. It was quite noisy, so he walked around the other rooms of the orphanage. Luo Nan had always admired Dean Wan Tao's skillful hands and design philosophy. The orphanage, which had been converted from an abandoned shopping mall, truly had a style to it. It had a sense of artistic order. The place he was in right now was the reception room he had stayed in last time. He reclined on an old peach-colored sofa. The clamor outside had dropped to a relatively comfortable level, bringing a marvelous sense of tranquility. So Luo Nan spent half an hour here to apply for computing space and to compare and ponder. There was no one to disturb him. It was very comfortable. However, this feeling of comfort inevitably subsided when he faced the dynamo core. He would have to return this little thing to Gym Master Xiao by tomorrow at the latest. Even though he had already left behind a complete blueprint, it would be too easy to think of the dynamo core as a toy to obtain results through a simple comparison of the blueprint. Luo Nan sighed in his mind. He rubbed his fingers and opened the bag. There were no other movements after that. The dynamo core in the bag floated up by itself. It passed through the opening of the bag and floated to a more spacious area outside. Buzz! A deep vibrating sound entered Luo Nan's ears. The dynamo core floating in the air first extended out 6 tentacles. Then the tentacles branched off one by one, forming 30 secondary branches. And on a level that was hard to discern with the naked eye, there were 1,240 even finer filaments. They constructed a complex and dense network that was distributed within an area of a meter in diameter. Luo Nan's thoughts turned once more. His soul strength and the material plane interfered with each other, forming nearly incorporeal waves that swept through the area. The changes in its structure were absorbed into his heart lake. It was just as the mechanical schematics showed. The complex structure was undergoing changes all the time. There was practically no good way to confirm its functions one by one, aside from a supercomputer. Fortunately, Luo Nan never hoped that he could decipher the ultimate mysteries of the dynamo core in a short amount of time. Otherwise, he would be looking down on the research capabilities of the entire Earth's academic community. He just used this to dispel the last bit of his unrealistic fantasies. Then he concentrated his energy to search for a certain sign. A defective product. Just like us right now. A defective product. Us right now. Luo Nan cared a lot about Gym Master Xiu's words because it involved his parents and loved ones, and because of the context and wording. From Luo Nan's perspective, Gym Master Xiu's words didn't clearly point out anything, and he didn't clearly link them together. However, the meaning was consistent. The main thrust of their discussion was the outline of human cultivation, and then they focused on the concept of the furnace. Gym Master Xiu's words and his own situation pointed out without a doubt that the current world had yet to obtain a reasonable and complete result regarding the construction method of the furnace. This included the extraordinaries who stood at the apex. Following this logic, Gym Master Xiu mentioned the dynamo core, calling it a defective product. More importantly, there was the word us in his words. In light of this, Luo Nan could only believe that Gym Master Xiu had made an analogy between the dynamo core and the ability users of the current world. At the very least, they were cultivators who touched upon the concept of the furnace. The dynamo core was a defective product. Ability users were also defective products. The defective products of ability users were due to the incomplete construction of the furnace. Then was the defect of the corresponding dynamo core also due to the defect in the structure of the furnace? Also, the defect was relative to the completeness. Where was the complete reference? Luo Nan observed the structure of the dynamo core from many angles, but how could he see through the mysteries within such a short time? As he was observing carefully, he sensed someone coming from outside. He was just about to put away the dynamo core, but a thought flashed through his mind, and he didn't take the next step. A rhythmic knock sounded on the door, and Luo Nan said, "Please come in." The door to the reception room opened, and Dean Wan Ta, who wore a priest-like robe, walked in with slow steps. After entering the room, his gaze naturally fell on the structure of the dynamo core floating in the air. "Dean Wan, you've worked hard." "It's nothing. The children were just a bit noisy." "They didn't disturb you, right?" "No. This really is a good place to find tranquility amidst the noise. It's quite suitable to think about problems. Nurse Wang even poured me some water." The two exchanged a few words of greeting, and Luo Nan gestured with his hand, inviting Wan Ta to sit wherever he wanted. Wan Ta sat on a recliner of the same color across from the sofa, his body naturally straight. One of them was so polite that it didn't seem like he was in his own territory, while the other was as casual and natural as if he was at home. It was a bit like the host and the guest had been reversed. However, both sides weren't people who paid much attention to superfluous formalities. They did things according to their hearts, and they displayed considerable respect. Wan Ta respected Luo Nan's privacy, and Luo Nan didn't keep it to himself. Instead, he completely presented the structure of the dynamo core in front of Wan Ta. This kind of magnanimity continued from the first time the two met. This was because they knew that the other belonged to the lawful faction, and the scope of maintaining order was different. Even if they weren't completely like-minded, there was no direct conflict of ideals. More importantly, they both hoped to carry forward their own ideals, to let more people recognize them, and to use them in a broader domain. Therefore, they could accept each other's teachings, and they could compare notes with each other. He gathered the water droplets again and again and then reshaped them, as if he would never get tired of it. Luo Nan didn't tire of this process. His eyes stared fixedly at the sparkling and translucent model. This wasn't just a model. Luo Nan could feel that when the Wanda Tower exerted force to maintain its form, this toy should be able to display similar functions to the dynamo core. Luo Nan sucked in another breath. He suddenly spoke a sentence. "Can you teach me?" Wanta didn't say anything. He just shot a glance at Luo Nan, nodded, and continued with his operation. Luo Nan didn't say anything more. He focused his mind and watched as the body of water blossomed like a flower, more and more perfectly imitating the structure of the Tai Chi ball dynamo core. The tentacles, secondary branches, and filaments split and expanded layer by layer, forming 3 relatively clear areas. It was more or less the same as when he first saw this scene. Luo Nan couldn't help but think of an essential factor, formatting theory. From the very beginning, Grandpa's formatting theory had deduced the visualization diagram, the structure of a tetrahedron with inscribed and circumscribed spheres. Luo Nan had already confirmed that this structure was closely related to the dynamo core. Whether it was the Deep Sea Type 4 dynamo core, the dynamic structure of the Tai Chi ball dynamo core, or Jack's memories of the moment he transformed from an altered human to a burner, all of them clearly displayed this point. Luo Nan even guessed that the scientists researching the archetype format should have grasped this key point. For instance, the epic-making inventions like the burner and the format of fire. It was very likely that they had some reference. What about Grandpa? Where did his research originate from? At this moment, Luo Nan couldn't help but think of the external neuron coiled in his brain. That was also a dynamo core. Whether it was Luo Nan's emotional delineation or reality verification, both proved that this dynamo core was of a higher level than the other 2 dynamo cores he had seen. It was much higher level. At least from the current research materials, the other 2 dynamo cores didn't possess the function of hollow depository. They couldn't form the subtle configuration of the condensation ring, and they couldn't serve as the key to the building of gear that led to the clouds. But the focus of the current problem lay in the furnace body. If the dynamo core could be viewed as a mechanical system when combined with the visualization diagram. This was precisely the direction of Worker Zhai's research. Then, a mechanical system should have 3 basic parts: the motion department, the transmission department, and the work department. The motion department was most likely the location of the furnace that Jim Master Shio spoke of. Luo Nan didn't expect to find a complete power source from the dynamo core. It didn't conform to the law of conservation of energy if it relied purely on the dynamo core to generate energy. Even a reactor needed to add nuclear fuel rods. The powerful power possessed by cultivators was produced through the human body's absorption of food and other resources. A higher level could be explained as the mutual interference between the mind and matter, drawing special energy from other dimensions. From this point of view, the truth of the so-called furnace should be the integration and utilization of external resources. On this point, all 3 dynamo cores had shown their worth. The Tai Chi ball dynamo core absorbed external force. The Deep Sea Type 4 dynamo core absorbed the energy of the Deep Blue Walker's energy storage when Jack controlled it. The external neuron displayed its astonishing ability first, drawing electricity from the energy center of gear. Of course, they all went through a transformation process. Luo Nan hadn't been electrocuted to death by the high-voltage electricity. Jim Master Shio had also said things like upgrade step by step. Therefore, the standard of a furnace should be to convert external resources into a higher form of energy to achieve efficient utilization. Which one is more efficient? The Tai Chi ball dynamo core could carry a metal ball that weighed several hundred kilograms by storing and transforming the external force of a strike. The Deep Sea Type 4 dynamo core allowed a cyborg like Jack to generate the format of fire and break through the barrier between the spirit and the material. As for the external neuron, it was even more inconceivable. It opened up a void chamber that could accommodate soul power, and it could change its form at any time to serve as a medium for the interaction between the spirit and the material. Of course, there was a difference in abilities. If Luo Nan were to rank them, the external neuron would undoubtedly be ranked first, the Deep Sea Type 4 dynamo core would be ranked second, and the Tai Chi ball dynamo core would be ranked last. But there were far too many details that Luo Nan was unable to make clear of. He was unable to draw the conclusion that this was a defective product. If he could complete the 3 dynamo core models and make a direct comparison, he might be able to find out where the differences and flaws were. This was the reason why Luo Nan wanted to learn the Wan Ta method of creation. Defective product. There had to be a reason. A moment later, Luo Nan flipped open his notebook and lit up the flexible e-ink screen. His gaze rested on a dark gray app icon on the main interface. This icon was in the shape of a tetrahedron with an inscribed circumscribed circle. It was the classic visualization diagram of formatting theory. Right now, it was displayed as an incomplete download. The icon appeared at the end of September, after his confrontation with the human-faced arachnid at the Limestone Water Village pub. It represented his progress in analyzing the wraith sign or the order framework behind it. Sometimes, it also represented the progress of his cultivation. However, ever since the incident at Frost River Reality, the progress of the icon's analysis had been stuck at the subtle number of 99%. It had remained stagnant. Even though Luo Nan's cultivation had made tremendous progress during this period of time, his level of understanding had continuously increased, and his development of the wraith sign's abilities continued to deepen. The icon still had no reaction. If Luo Nan were to consider things from his previous perspective, he could only believe that his understanding of the wraith sign and the order framework involved in formatting theory had not made any fundamental breakthroughs. But now, he could not help but consider things from a different perspective. Was there a problem with the dynamo core itself? Luo Nan grew more and more impatient to learn the method of creation. However, the most important thing was to discuss the mysteries of the dynamo core's structure. As the water bead's mimicry gradually approached perfection, Luo Nan and Wan Ta began a corresponding discussion. Differences and arguments were unavoidable when it came to the details. We must consider the factor of materiality. The structure is the most crucial. Forgive me for speaking bluntly. You are running away from an unfamiliar domain. But I feel that we must first find the right entry point. And Dean Wan, I believe that it is a bit biased to be completely bound to the material plane. The voices of the two grew louder and louder. The corresponding domain expanded, involving even more issues of philosophy. It could not be said that their faces were red and their necks were thick, but it was definitely not as harmonious as it was in the beginning. At this time, there was another knock on the door to the reception room. Little featherhead Di Weiwu poked his head in from outside the door. His eyes widened. Are you guys going to fight? The discussion was forced to stop. Luo Nan and Wan Ta looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. No. There's no such thing. Di Weiwu pushed open the door completely. He curled his lips and said, I feel like it. Brother Luo Nan, I know that your abilities are great and that you can fight super well. But we aren't weak here. The child could clearly distinguish between inside and outside. And though his words were casual, Luo Nan and Wan Ta discovered his nervous mood. It looked like he was really worried. Were they arguing very intensely before? It was likely that the discussion would not succeed today. Luo Nan smiled at Wan Ta and put away the dynamo core. He was just about to pacify the child when a directional message came over from the Hexier. The Society's guardian target, Sleeping Beauty, has gone missing. Please confirm and assist in the search. Ha! Chapter 501. Rui Wen's sudden disappearance caused the Xia City branch to be thrown into chaos. After all, there were many complicated issues involved aside from finding the person. A new mission channel had been established on the Psychic Wave Network. Fire, theft, quantum corporation, and perhaps headquarters as well. In a short amount of time, most of Xia City had been mobilized. It was a chaotic mess. Luo Nan could only leave the orphanage in a hurry after this happened. Before he left, he gave the Tai Chi ball dynamo core in his hand to Shuelei, who was also attending the ceremony. He asked Shuelei to return it to Gym Master Xiao for now. Then he took a car to Shangding Building to observe the situation. Luo Nan's thoughts were still unclear after he got in the car, but his emotions were still calm. He activated the resources of the sealed system to try and lock onto a target while he looked at the video He Yuan sent him. The video was a surveillance record of Rui Wen's ward. The time shown was around 2040, approximately 5 minutes ago. At the beginning, the girl was lying peacefully on the hospital bed. There were a few monitoring and life support equipment on her body. Everything looked normal. But several seconds later, the slender girl's eyelashes trembled in the focal area of the surveillance video. Then she opened her eyes. The image was extremely clear, but Luo Nan's mood was a bit absent-minded at this moment. The girl's gaze looked straight at the ceiling. She was serene and calm, not revealing any emotions. She didn't look like the emptiness and bewilderment of someone who had been bedridden for a long time. Instead, she seemed to be extremely clear about her own circumstances. This scene made Luo Nan's heart inexplicably oppressed. This was a person he had personally saved. She was half a believer, but he couldn't say that he was familiar with her. Seriously, who else in this world knew of Rui Wen's true origins besides the Laboratory of Quantum Corporation? Perhaps she was already used to similar situations. Luo Nan still remembered that when he faced Gong Qi, who had invaded the cloud world, only Rui Wen had given him a resonance in the entire sealed system when he was agitated and angry. It wasn't a resonance. It was a resonance that was true and void. She seemed calm on the surface, but there was an oppressive and flowing feeling of blazing heat. It perfectly matched Luo Nan's state of mind at the time. Was it an accidental coordination, or was it because of a similar experience? Luo Nan couldn't get an answer, but the emotions in his heart continued to ripple because of those serene eyes. He stared at the image, a bit stunned. At this time, from the surveillance screen, it could be seen that because of Rui Wen's sudden awakening, the inside and outside of the monitoring room were also in a mess. Some medical staff opened the door and came in, wanting to do a further examination. It was conceivable that there would be more people rushing over from the outside. At this moment, the originally clear image suddenly blurred. In reality, it wasn't that the image was blurred, but the reality it reflected was blurred. On the sickbed, Rui Wen was like an illusory bubble. She flashed in the middle of the distorted light and shadow, then disappeared without a trace. In just 1/10 of a second, the hospital bed became empty. All the tubes were loosened, and the nutrient solution dripped onto the bedding. There were still traces of a human figure pressing down on the bedding. Such a way of disappearing. Luo Nan was a bit stupefied for a time. He hurriedly rewound the surveillance video to watch. The second time, he felt a little more confident. His body and soul fused into one. This was precisely Rui Wen's forte. She was a special existence that wandered the boundary between the spiritual and the material. At that moment, she was completely an incorporeal spirit. Naturally she could leave as she pleased. If she could leap into the deep spiritual plane of the abyss region and the polar domain, even President Ouyang would have a hard time keeping her here. It was easy to say, but the more Luo Nan understood the know-how within, the more he felt that Rui Wen's actions had already completely exceeded the scope of the ordinary concept of supernatural power. The mutual interference of the material and the mental was understandable, but a complete transformation. How in the world did she accomplish this? Luo Nan didn't invest too much energy into this question. In any case, it was impossible for him to figure it out in a short amount of time. Compared to these technical matters, he was more concerned about Rui Wen's current thoughts. Why did this experimental girl, who resonated with a corner of his mind, leave? Where did she want to go? What sort of attitude did she have toward these people, especially him? He sat in the back of the off-road vehicle. His hands were pressed together in front of his mouth and nose, concealing his facial expression. He was even more focused, paying attention to the changes in the living starry sky at all times. Where was she? Where was she? The vehicle had already entered Xiqing district. It made an oblique turn, heading toward the Lilan district. But then Luo Nan suddenly stood up. Wait a moment. Let's go order some wine. Beside him, Qi Nikuan turned his head in astonishment. Which one? Luo Nan's eyes seemed to be closed, but his other perspective within the living starry sky became clearer and clearer. Correspondingly, the resplendent stars shifted their positions, bringing slight ripples to the closed system. Linhai District. Huaying West Road. Dingyang Bar. Hurry up. God borrowed the rearview mirror to glance over. He swung the steering wheel lightly, and the vehicle left autopilot mode. It turned onto another magnetic rail highway, and its speed suddenly increased. It sounded like a bird was struggling. Soon, the sound of scrape was clear. It was a crow that was commonly seen in Xia City. Was it looking for food? There have been more crows in Xia City recently. Moya felt that she would always encounter similar situations when she went out recently. Crows would fly over her head and around her from time to time. Fortunately, her luck wasn't affected. Hai Jing also glanced in that direction. It's hard to see other birds in winter besides crows and sparrows. Unless you go to the ecological park. Do you want to take a walk tomorrow? Tomorrow's agenda is to sleep late. You can ask Sister Meng to treat you. Treat it as a bribe. Say more good things in front of the boss in the future. Then forget it. One sentence from Sister Wei is worth 100 sentences from me. The return on investment is obviously not equal. Meng Fei directly flipped the hood of her winter suit over her head. She completely curled into a ball. In this damn weather, I'd rather go to the streets to do my homework than go to some ecological park. At least I can go to the mall to get some heat. Then I hope that you can discover another Sister Wei. Thank you for your blessings. In just a few sentences, the topic had been changed to who knows where. At this time, Malu stuck his head out of the car and urged them to get on. The group of people chatted and laughed as they got on the car. When they were about to get on the car, the cleaning robot had just returned to its original position. The car's lights were turned on, stretching its shadow diagonally forward. Moya blew the guy a kiss. Thanks. Scrape. It was the crow dubbing. Moya laughed and was about to get into the car when she suddenly shivered. Wait. She called out and jumped out of the car again. In the car, Shu Yi, who still had a date, was a little annoyed. Are you done? Moya didn't care at all. She strode forward with her long legs and arrived in front of the car in 2 steps. At this time, the headlights were pointing forward. The snow flew everywhere and reflected a distorted shadow inside the alley. In this long, twisted, chaotic shadow, Moya saw the shadows of the cleaning robot and the junk pile mixed together. At the edge of them, there was a long swaying shadow. The edges were uneven, and the bottom was slightly curved. It should be the wings of a crow flapping, and there was also half of its body. But below the long shadow, there was a slender shadow. The front part of the shadow merged with the crow's shadow, but the shape of the bent joints could be vaguely seen. And then there was an even more obvious curve of the wrist and the straight line of the arm. Hai Jing also got out of the car and stood side by side with Moya. He squinted his eyes and tilted his head slightly. At this moment, he could clearly see that under the illumination of the headlights, there was clearly a slender arm of light supporting the crow. Under the fluttering snow powder, it was trembling slightly. His heart trembled. Moya had already rushed forward and went straight to the junk pile. Hai Jing stretched out his hand, but didn't even catch the tail of his shirt. A second later, Moya's shout filled the alley. Chapter 502. Long Chi came out of the nightclub wearing a thin cashmere sweater with a high collar. Even with the casual suit hanging on his arm, his clothes were a season different from the others. But this kind of tight-fitting style was also very powerful, showing off a superior and fit figure. The young woman who went out with him wished that she could turn into a warm jacket and stick close to him, creating a short and exciting memory together. However, regardless of whether Long Chi was facing the snowflakes that filled the sky or the young married woman who had tears in her eyes, he was still smiling. He refused the young woman's invitation, but left his social contact number. Then, he walked into the cold wind without looking back. The low temperature of -20 degrees Celsius was meaningless to him, just like the restless woman whose body temperature was about to rise to 40 degrees Celsius. At 9:00 in the evening, the nightclub street in the waterfront district had not yet entered its most lively period. He really liked the atmosphere here, but it was a pity that the last-minute mission had brought him some destructive expectations. Walking along the nightclub street for a few hundred meters, he found the designated area with the help of the dazzling red and blue police lights. It was the back alley of a music bar. Looking from here, under the streetlights, the alley was surrounded by a dense group of people. He leisurely walked over. However, just as he stepped into the front of the alley, a throbbing thought suddenly dripped into the lake of his heart. With a dripping sound, a dense chill spread out layer by layer. In the blink of an eye, it spread throughout his entire body. Long Chi shuddered and stopped abruptly. This was something that even a temperature of -20 degrees Celsius could not do. "Little guy, don't be nervous. Let big sister take a look." In the alley, Moya took the risk of being hit by the crow's wings. She crouched down and got closer to the child. The child is thin. This was Moya's first impression. The child was wearing a loose hospital gown. His hair had probably not been taken care of for 2 to 3 months. It hung over his forehead and covered half of his face. Under the shadow of the pile of junk, the crows, and the onlookers, the fragments of light that shone and made his face appear even thinner and paler. It was inevitable that he looked a little gloomy. This made the child appear a bit more mature. But with Luo Nan as a reference, his actual age should be about the same. Maybe a bit younger. 14, 15. Moya tried to confirm if the child had any identification such as a bracelet on him. Under normal circumstances, in order to make it easier to live in this society, even children who were completely incapacitated would wear identification cards and the like. But after looking around twice, Moya did not find any similar equipment. But what was the meaning of the hospital gown? In his memory, there was no hospital nearby. The child sitting next to the pile of junk indeed had no intention of moving. He just stared at the crow in his hand. This crow's body was extremely large, much larger than its peers. At this moment, it tilted its head and looked back at the child. Occasionally, it would flap its wings and caw. There seemed to be a hint of helplessness in its voice. In fact, ever since the sudden appearance of this fellow believer, the crow named Ink had not flown for almost half an hour. Ink would not let go of him. Moya was a little uncertain. She scratched her head and turned around, only to be shocked. Unbeknownst to him, a dense crowd of people had gathered behind him. The members of the Mountain Creek Band, the bar owner who had heard the news, the customers, and a bunch of idlers who had come out to watch the commotion had completely blocked the narrow alley. The policemen who had just arrived were struggling to squeeze in. "The police are here, everyone get out of the way." Moya gestured for her manager to chase them away. She suspected that the skinny child in front of her might have some mental illness. This was because the child's expression and attitude did not match a normal situation. There was clearly a circle of people watching, but the child did not speak, did not move, did not care, and did not care. He only gently stroked the crow's feathers in his hand and muttered something incomprehensible. Autism. Schizophrenia. Or something else. Forgive her for thinking this way. There was no helping it. There was an old person in the family who was like this, so Amoya was more sensitive. She was worried that if too many people gathered, it would cause adverse effects. Hai Jing displayed the responsibility and means of a manager. With just a few words, he got the police to help him chase most of the onlookers back to the bar. At the same time, the other members of the Mountain Creek Band, who could not stand the cold temperature in the back alley, hurriedly got into the car and left under the supervision of Meng Jia. Only Amoya and himself were left. Things were considered normal up to this point, but then things came to a standstill. The little guy sitting in the corner must be mentally different from ordinary people. He didn't speak or move. The people around him, no matter how they tried to persuade him or coax or hug him, couldn't pull him out of the corner. In the end, all they got was the dissatisfied caw of the crow. That was awkward. The police officer was still a young man, and he really wanted to kneel down. This child is too stubborn. The problem is that there is no information in the system, not in the SCA's database. There are no records of a child being admitted to any hospital, welfare home, or nursing home in the city. Why do I feel like this is a major case? I've also notified the SCA Child Welfare Department. Maybe there are specializations. It's just that it's too... Achoo. During the persuasion, Hai Jing had already taken off his windbreaker, wanting to give it to the child to keep him warm. However, the child did not appreciate it at all. The crow flapping its wings was also a hindrance. Hai Jing was too embarrassed to put it back on, so he only draped it over his back and stomped his feet in the cold in the alley. If the situation was not resolved soon, he might be sent to the hospital with a bad cold. But he was most worried about Amoya right now. This beautiful woman, who was highly radiant and cold, thought that she could resist the cold. The clothes she was wearing were just that, so she must have been badly frozen. There was a commercial show in 2 days, and it would be troublesome if something went wrong. He tried to persuade her, Amoya, you should go back first. I'll stay here and deal with it. I'll let you know as soon as there are results. Amoya also knew that she had caused trouble for everyone. She raised her hand in apology, but she was still a little unwilling. Suddenly, she reached out and pinched the child's cheek. Hey, stubborn child, I'm leaving if you don't respond. It's not too late to regret it. As long as you follow me, I'll serve you hot drinks and cakes. Ha! Strangely enough, in the biting cold wind, her hands were almost frozen stiff, but the child's thin cheeks were still tender and warm, which was very nice to touch. Little did she know that Long Chi, who was in a shadowy corner in the back alley, was watching with his eyes twitching. There was a certain distance between them, but Long Chi was able to confirm who that thin child was. His head and body were covered in a layer of snow powder. His previous partner, the valiant Fish 2 and the big-hearted Wall 5, had suffered heavy injuries from this child's all-penetrating, all-decaying attack. Their bodily functions had been severely damaged, and they had fallen victim to Jack's evil hands on the way back. Fish 2 had died on the spot, and Wall 5 had kept his life. However, he was no longer suited for frontline work, and in the end he resigned in dejection. In that nightmarish night, Long Chi, who had moved out under the code name Snake 7, hated that shameless and savage cyborg the most. But that guy was already done for. What was left was this child. He seemed to be called Ruiwen. He didn't know what kind of energy was contained within her thin and slender body. She actually managed to forcefully break through their 7-man deep blue team's encirclement. In the end, they had to use a particle cannon at all costs to knock her unconscious. From an objective point of view, it seemed like their side was a bit more shameless. No matter what, Long Chi, codenamed Snake 7, held extremely complicated feelings towards the child in the alley. He wouldn't be like that stupid woman overflowing with motherly instincts. She wouldn't directly play some killing by touching someone's face. She might even get her arm broken. Since touching someone's face was dangerous, then this mission itself, many thoughts spun in Long Chi's mind. He exchanged information with the higher-ups who had issued the order, communicating the specifics of the mission. Not even 2 minutes passed before another order was transmitted over. Snake 7, from now on, observe and await orders. Ha! Ha! Deep Blue, you're a high-ranking employee of Sky Blue Security right now. If you want to earn some extra money, do you need me to help you cancel your employment contract? But please pay a penalty in advance. Understood. Long Chi immediately shrank back. Or perhaps it could be said that he found a reason to stay away from danger. But then he couldn't help but say, Dr. Bai, aren't you worried about your contract? A doctor who came out of Clay's laboratory won't be without a job anywhere. The important thing is that I don't have a penalty clause. The problem is that you also came out of the Apocalypse laboratory. Coming out of there. Are there any living people? Long Chi didn't say these words out loud. Ever since Dr. Bai Xinyan became the person in charge of the Sky Blue Security Xia City branch, the dozens of Deep Blue walkers had come to understand more and more the principle of people under the eaves have no choice but to lower their heads. As a high-ranking researcher who was well-versed in burner theory and the theory of the human body system, Bai Xinyan could adjust their training courses at any time. She could let the trainees have a deep understanding of the obvious difference between heaven and hell, under the premise that it wouldn't be obvious and that it wouldn't affect the results. All right, please instruct. Standardize the mode of operation. Observe and await orders. Yes. In the official operations of the Deep Blue Walkers, skipping ranks to command was a matter that was explicitly forbidden. Long Chi only needed to set the information reception to a combat readiness mode, and then he could only accept combat orders from his direct superior. Of course, this also meant that the other command that was still clamoring in his ears right now would be completely blocked out. Long Chi hesitated a bit. Should he directly feign ignorance towards Deep Blue, or should he inform them? At this time, a car came to a stop on the other side of the alley. Someone opened the door and got off the car just as it came to a stop. The alley wasn't long. Long Chi borrowed the streetlight to clearly see the person's face. And the other person's penetrating cold gaze swept over a hair's breadth. Hiss. It was at this moment that Deep Blue became much more anxious. Long Chi, are you listening? Reporting the target situation. Follow-up support is already on the way. Hello. Hello. Support my ass. Chapter 503. In the middle of the alley, Hai Jing really didn't want Imoya to stick to him anymore, so he went forward and forcefully pushed her out. Let's go, let's go. Leave this to me. I'll send you a photo of the scene every 5 minutes, okay? Imoya frowned. I think I'm about to convince him. That must be your illusion. While they were arguing, a car sounded at the entrance of the alley. Someone got out. At first, they thought that it was the social welfare agency, but when the street light fell on the person's face, Imoya could not help but be surprised. Luonan. What are you doing here? When I was passing by, I saw your nanny van. The reason that Luonan blurted out could be said to be full of flaws. But right now he wasn't in the mood to weave a more complete lie. His gaze went straight past Imoya's shoulder. From this angle, he could only see ink flapping its wings from time to time. Ink being here was actually Luonan's arrangement. Because Imoya, who was always on the move, was not suitable for a large number of security personnel. For the sake of ensuring her safety, Luonan sent the idle Ink to Imoya's side after completing the Trigate security mission. Ink followed Imoya 24 hours a day. If anything unexpected happened, ink could intervene through the closed system. But Luo Nan never expected that this sort of arrangement would actually attract Rui Wen over. Luo Nan walked forward with quick steps. His reason kept reminding him to pay attention to his concealment, to not let Mo Yi see through him. But as his line of sight extended, he saw a thin and gloomy little girl with almost no feminine features sitting in the corner. She was covered in snow powder, sitting under a pile of junk. He saw human figures and other distorted shadows covering her, but the girl was silent. There was only the crow in her eyes. Rui Wen was in a completely different dimension from the others. She didn't care about others, and no one really understood her. Luo Nan's heart felt a bit stifled when he saw this scene. Sentences such as, "The stallion stands alone, the shadow hangs by itself," from the ancient texts he had learned suddenly materialized. They transformed into a surging black tide that flooded his mind. All right, perhaps Rui Wen didn't need pity, but the feeling still lingered in Luo Nan's heart. It was hard to dissipate in the end. Qin Ikuan quickly walked past him. Mo Ye and Hai Jing said something to him. Luo Nan was aware of these circumstances, but he didn't make the appropriate response. This was because his emotions were rising and falling like the tide. The speed of his brain was affected. Luo Nan himself didn't understand why the emotions in his mind were this intense. He was unable to resolve this doubt for a time. He just passed by Mo Ye and arrived at the side of the junk pile to face Rui Wen. Then, he saw that the girl was casually kneeling on the ground, holding the ink bottle with one hand, and there seemed to be a slight smile on her lips. Luo Nan half knelt in front of the girl in the next moment. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. Strictly speaking, this was his first official meeting with Rui Wen. In the past, their communication was either through ink or through a closed system. Rui Wen also sensed something. Her gaze moved away from the ink for the first time to fall on Luo Nan's face. There was no change in his expression, only his eyes were sparkling. He raised his head, someone exclaimed. Then Mo Ye's voice rang out, "He's reacting to you." As expected, it's better to be around the same age. Luo Nan didn't say anything, but he came to a realization in his mind. Forgive him for overstepping his bounds and standing in Rui Wen's position. No matter what the nature was, he really was Rui Wen's only coordinate relative to this world at this current stage. It must be known that Rui Wen had already found ink, the person she believed to be of the same species. Then, she was surrounded by a circle of people. Presumably, she wasn't feeling too comfortable. With her abilities, she could escape into the mental plane once more and break away from this environment. As for misgivings, with her usual reactions, they simply didn't exist. But why didn't she move? Luo Nan knew that at least a part of the reason was because of the information he transmitted through the closed system. Just like the gaze that was cast over right now. He, Luo Nan, possessed a certain degree of existence in Rui Wen's heart. He even possessed a sense of identity. This was good news, right? Rui Wen didn't look at Luo Nan for too long. She shifted her gaze and spoke to Ink in a low voice. Perhaps Ink's intelligence was higher than 99% of crows, but this didn't mean that it was able to understand Rui Wen's meaning. To put it bluntly, this was a one-way communication between chickens and ducks. But when Luo Nan looked straight at Rui Wen, he saw the faintly discernible smile on her lips. It was an attitude of tranquility and satisfaction. Luo Nan grew more and more speechless when faced with this situation. But it was also at this time that his train of thought opened up a bit. He suddenly understood where the surging tide of emotions in his heart came from. Actually, it was him. Luo Nan looked at Rui Wen right now. It was like he was looking at himself when he was experimenting alone. He would be excited because he was still alive after increasing the dosage of the drug. He would also be satisfied because the degree of pain he felt after taking the drug one day was slightly reduced. But was that really satisfaction? That should be the respite he felt after temporarily escaping from hell. It was also the hypnotic pleasure brought by the glimmer of light when he faced an unreachable goal, when he couldn't see the complete path. As Luo Nan grew older, he became more accustomed to the recent 2 or 3 months of leaps and bounds in his accomplishments. He recalled the muddle-headedness of his first experiments and often shuddered with fear. How much luck did he use in order to endure through the initial juncture? This question was already incalculable. But Luo Nan felt that there was no difference between the current Rui Wen and him back then. He was practically 100% certain that even if Rui Wen were to face death, she would probably be like this right now. This was because she had never understood or experienced what a normal, splendid life should be like. The laboratory and the fighting arena filled up everything that Rui Wen once was. There are some things that I need to properly teach you. Even though I'm not too good at it. Luo Nan spoke in a low voice. His voice was fuzzy and hoarse. Even he himself nearly couldn't hear it clearly. Luo Nan. Moya felt that something was wrong. Luo Nan didn't respond. He just extended his hand towards Rui Wen. Come. Together. Rui Wen shifted her gaze once more. She tilted her head slightly, probably due to ink blocking her view. So much so that she carried a bit of careless childishness. Perhaps it was the closed system that allowed them to communicate telepathically. Or perhaps it was the face-to-face communication that transmitted sufficient information. Rui Wen didn't move. She allowed Luo Nan's hand to reach over. There was a slight commotion behind them. At the same time, the snow powder swirled past their eyes. It was just like the gazes and attitudes of the people in the outside world. It didn't cause any interference. Luo Nan grabbed Rui Wen's left arm. The girl's arm was slender and slender. It could be grasped. It was this arm that was supporting the massive body of ink right now. Next, Luo Nan lightly exerted force. The girl was like a ghost that didn't exert any strength at all. She gracefully stood up. A thin layer of snow powder slid down from her shoulder. Some of it landed on the wrists and arms of the two, quickly melting away. Although not many of the surrounding people understood what was going on, they still let out a breath of relief. Only Luo Nan felt the pressure in his heart grow, even though he didn't use any strength in his hand. From this moment on, the connection between him and Rui Wen was no longer illusory. Instead, it was a carrier that truly merged with reality. All the people in the know, the onlookers behind them, the people with ulterior motives hidden in the shadows, and the fellows who were hiding their heads and showing their tails were all witnesses. Mr. Luo. He Yuan took the initiative to communicate with him. What she said was very realistic. For the sake of safety, let us take over right now. Luo Nan just needed to nod his head, and the Xia City branch would shoulder this burden. The iron triangle formed by President Ouyang, Old Yu, and Her Majesty Empress Wu would be one of the most headache-inducing combinations in the world. The impenetrable wall they constructed was enough to make those with ulterior motives break their heads and bleed. This was, without a doubt, the most reasonable choice. However, Luo Nan couldn't help overstepping his boundaries. He tried to consider things from Rui Wen's point of view. Should he let her return to the intensive care unit? Or should he watch her over and over again in the snowy night with a crow as her companion, talking to herself in her own world for all eternity? This wouldn't do. I'll accompany her for a while. Luo Nan himself didn't have a clear understanding of what "a while" meant. As a non-security personnel who needed a bodyguard to protect him, there were many things he didn't have a sufficient position on. Let's just say that he had a childish illness. Luo Nan needed to clearly understand his own responsibilities and obligations. They were right before his eyes. Otherwise, this illusory courage and responsibility, which might have arisen from impulsiveness, might be crushed by the heavy pressure behind him. It would be hard to leave a trickle behind. He Yuan didn't respond immediately. She seemed to be weighing the pros and cons. This reaction startled Luo Nan a bit. Could it be that Yuan was once again indulging his willfulness out of habit? Or could it be that his proposal had a benefit that even he himself wasn't clear about? Luo Nan didn't understand for a time, but this gave him the confidence and reason to continue persevering. We'll be together. I can't speak of anything else, but at the very least, in this world, a fellow who can do something unfavorable to us and catch us unprepared has yet to be born. Luo Nan really didn't have the face to say these last words. But in this moment when his thoughts were clear, he really did do something. Ink was a bit restless. It flapped its wings, and this time the force restricting its flight suddenly disappeared. It flew into the air as if relieved of a heavy burden, circling above the alley. But at this time, the snow powder floating down from the sky suddenly became much more sluggish. Icy cold liquid seeped in through the gaps between Ink's feathers. It was very uncomfortable. In the shadows of the alley, Long Seven was under Chin Ikuan's near face-to-face surveillance. He behaved like an ambassador of peace. His entire body didn't make any unnecessary movements. But at this moment, he subconsciously raised his head. The water droplets hit his face and immediately turned into ice. The cold penetrated into his bones. It was unknown when, but the fluttering snow powder transformed into a special form between ice particles and water droplets. Was it hail or freezing rain? Chapter 504. Why aren't you moving? He's right there. We need to observe. I just need him to cooperate. I'm not asking him to risk his life. I need to outsmart him. Then that's really unfortunate. That unlucky bastard has already been exposed. Do you remember? He once met your target face to face. If you really want to go, then it won't be outsmarting him. It'll be a provocation. Not only do you want him to go provoke a dangerous target, but you want him to provoke a paranoid maniac who can slaughter half of Xia City at any time. What does half of Xia City have to do with me? You're very clear on C2834's value. Her value is immeasurable. Don't talk about half of Xia City. 10 Xia Cities, 100 Xia Cities. Are you sure that the Federation Council agrees before you say these words? There are 88 large metropolitan areas in the world. 100 Xia Cities. How do you convert them? Don't try to sell your glib tongue. Think about your ex. I'm not married, and I don't have a formal relationship. What do you mean by ex? We're not familiar with each other. I can sue you for slander if you speak carelessly. Bai Xinyan. The other side slammed the table. You've been in Xia City for the past 2 months. You haven't done a single thing that you should have done. Instead, you've gotten along well with the Xia City branch. You've put in a lot of effort in treating Luo Nan's injuries. Now you're evading in every possible way. I seriously doubt your position. If this matter isn't handled properly, then you'll have to take full responsibility. The irrational communication was cut off at this point. But then again, wasn't the other side just shouting that last sentence? Everything was a routine. Bai Xinyan didn't care, but she wouldn't let the other side succeed. After the communication was cut off, she immediately sent a text message to the other side. Appeal to the higher-ups. I'll let you go first. 3 seconds later, the communication was connected again. It was the same person, but the hysterical mood was close to non-existent. He was just a bit irritated and helpless. What the hell do you want? This is what I want to ask. Ever since C2834 entered the Shangding building, all relevant information has been reported to the lab through a stable channel. I can imagine that in the future, as long as C2834 is under the control of the Xia City branch, there will be a steady stream of information. What else do you want? Research requires first-hand information. You should understand that the existence of C2834 indicates that there is a huge problem with the direction of the Bloodline project. If we can't find the root of the problem, this project will be stalled indefinitely. Instructor Li Wei is very angry about this. We are also under a lot of pressure. Speaking of that name, the voice on the other side instinctively lowered. I understand. That's why you're acting like a cornered dog jumping over a wall. Or rather, you're putting on a show for that person. The other party froze. Bai Xinyan smiled. Fortunately, you haven't completely lost your rationality. At least, you still have the idea of outsmarting the enemy. The beginning is still acceptable. Even if the follow-up plan is too horrible to look at, that's not a big deal. As long as you understand that your life is precious, this is still an era where you can be willful if you have money. The other party spoke again. What do you think? I'm now the manager of Quantum Holdings, so I naturally have to consider things from the company's standpoint. Therefore, I think that as a company, the person at the helm must show the courage of a capitalist. If the project can be solved with money and can be profitable in the end, don't consider other means. Throw money at him. Too rough. Right now, storytelling is rather popular in the capital market, especially in the early stages. We can first test the waters. What do you think of the name Miss 2 in 1000? The other party was silent again. As a senior executive of the Deep Blue World Joint Project, he was deeply involved in the relevant matters. Of course, he knew what the ratio of 2 in 1000 meant. Just over a month ago, they had a business discussion with the Ability User Association's headquarters. They had offered 2 in 1000 shares of the Deep Blue World Joint Project in exchange for the rights to C2834. At the time, they had wanted the headquarters to take the lead and attempt to circumvent the protection of the two extraordinaries. Unfortunately, they hadn't been able to do so in the end. Instead, Gong Qi, who had led the team into Xia City, had lost quite a bit of face. Now that Bai Xinyan had brought up the old matter again, he immediately understood the meaning behind it. 2 in 1000 of 8 trillion was 16 billion. Money itself didn't have any meaning. The Deep Blue World Joint Project had a lot of information, as well as the research results that were about to make a huge breakthrough because of this Miss 2 in 1000, were the most valuable parts. As far as the parties who had already participated in the project were concerned, the information and results were all clearly marked on the agreement. 2 in 1000 was 16 billion. It wouldn't increase their rights and interests by much, but it also wouldn't cause any considerable losses. But as far as the other capitals and powers in the world were concerned, the qualifications they didn't have the opportunity to obtain in the past were the most important. Even if it was still a bottomless pit for the time being and they had to continuously throw money into it, once the results were out, 16 billion. 8 trillion. That was nothing. This was a super project that could affect the entire era. Originally, it was just a targeted distribution, but all of a sudden, it was a public offering. Regardless of whether the information was true or not, for the sake of the astronomical profits in the next few decades, it was easy to imagine that there would definitely be capital parties and powers burning with greed to make such an investment. Of course, there might also be desperados who had delusions of getting rich overnight. 16 billion was already an enormous amount of wealth that could establish a considerable foundation. And from beginning to end, they only needed to leak a little bit of information. They didn't even need the authorization of the board of directors. In any case, that 2 in 1000 was the portion that had to be sent out. The Ability User headquarters even had to share some of the suspicion. Everything was ready, and there wouldn't be any obvious evidence left behind. Light as a feather, but it would stir the overflowing hearts of people. In the face of greedy hyenas from all sides, even if Xia City had the Iron Triangle, they would still be flustered for a period of time. After all, desperados didn't have the sensitive points that major powers would be wary of in a confrontation. And in the field of capital, they would break through all bottom lines. You have a grudge with them, right? The other side had completely forgotten the suspected collaboration with the enemy at the end of the previous communication. In his opinion, this kind of ruthless extermination plan was not a blood feud, so there was no reason to do so. Ha! Bai Xinyan laughed without any sincerity. She skipped over this topic and moved on to a more realistic level. And your plan? Although it's terrible to look at, it's enough to throw a brick to attract jade. While you're at it, it's also enough to make the information true. During this period of time, because of the problems with the two orders of justice and blood flame, Xia City has filled in a lot of unstable factors. These are all resources that can be used. Okay. Hey, where are you going? A friend is in trouble, so of course I have to help. I'm very clear about the issue of my position. The legendary, black-hearted Salt really lived up to his name. The radio waves shuttling back and forth in Xia City were gradually permeating with malice. But in the small alley behind the bar, people were still struggling over the details. You two seem to have quite the affinity. Moya rubbed her chin and looked at the two half-grown children standing side by side. She had a lot of doubts in her heart, but now was not the time to be calculative. Since you two can get along so well, just bring him home. Let's ask Dad to help and see if he can figure out the child's identity. As a high-ranking employee of the SCA, Mo Haiheng did indeed have the ability to do so. However, Moya said it so casually that Hai Jing also had a headache. It wasn't that he didn't have sympathy, but for a normal person, wasn't it the best choice to let the police handle it? The young police officer who sent the police on the other side also had a headache. If we can't find any information, this child is most likely an illegal resident. The voice behind him became softer. He also felt that Hai Jing was the only reliable one in this group of people, so he discussed with him. I suspect that this child may be a wilderness vagrant. Let's take the child back to the police station first, and then let the civil affairs department handle it. Vagrant? Yes, there have been a lot of vagrants entering the city recently, and many of them haven't completed the procedures. According to the regulations, these illegal residents must be registered by the Civil Affairs Department and either sent back to the designated temporary residential area or to the designated welfare center. Where are the residential areas and the welfare center? The police officer found the closest ones and showed them to Hai Jing. The latter was shocked. Why are they all in the west? Of course. After all, Xia City is surrounded by the sea on 3 sides, and only the west side is close to the wilderness. The government also followed the principle of the nearest settlement. That side is more than 100 kilometers away from the coastal area. How did the child get here? While they were talking, the late staff of the Child Welfare Center finally arrived at the scene. His explanation was similar to the young police officer. There's no information at all. The most likely possibility is that he's an illegal resident from the residential area. Now, there are 2 choices. Either his relatives in the residential area claim him, or he'll be temporarily taken in by the welfare center and wait for the charity to adopt him. The Child Welfare Center that Hai Jing notified was a government department under the SCA. The person who came was a civil servant, and he looked quite capable. He used his wristband to take a picture of Rui Wen and said, "We need to complete the information here, but it's too late today. Let's find a place to settle down first. Tomorrow." Oh, tomorrow is Sunday. We need to wait until Monday for the relevant procedures to be completed. He operated his wristband. There's an empty bed at the Santa Maria Charity Hall 27 kilometers away. This welfare center isn't close, but it's backed by a hospital. The facilities are more complete, and it's more convenient to collect information. Moya and Hai Jing glanced at each other. It seemed that this was a good way to handle things. Just then, Luonan raised his hand. How about this? I'll stay with her at the welfare center for one night. When that time came, the branch should be able to prepare the relevant information. Setting up the identity of a vagrant and appointing an adoptive family was a good background. You. The staff of the welfare center furrowed his brows. You are. We're the informants. Chapter 505. The small mechanical spider crawled along the corridor. It was fast, but it didn't bump into any railings or corners. This was a popular bionic toy, and it was also the favorite of the children in the orphanage. Many people might think that it was ugly, but most children still thought that it was cute and sometimes cool. Especially when it was wandering in the dark, its 6 sensory eyes would flicker unpredictably. It could scare people to the point that they would jump in fright. Without a doubt, this was the favorite of those naughty kids. The toy spider in the Santa Maria Charity Hall was only a basic version. Although the 6 sensory eyes could send and receive signals and identify directions and obstacles, so that they wouldn't be reduced to mere decorations, they didn't have imaging functions. However, for some people, a simple stream of information was enough. 2 blocks away from the Santa Maria Charity Hall, the straight-line distance was about 3.5 kilometers. Inside a high-rise office building, the lights were still on at 10:00 in the evening on the 75th floor, even though it was a weekend. The relevant personnel were hurrying to set up the relevant equipment, and some people were already playing in front of the temporary workbench. Come on, give me a big signal, get out, I'll shoot you in the face with little noise. The young black man in front of the workbench was wearing headphones. His body continued to move rhythmically, and he was completely immersed in self-entertainment. Nobody bothered him. On the one hand, this was his working state, and on the other hand, it was none of their business. The light screen in front of the young black man was full of irregular red, green, and blue blocks, which were constantly piecing together and changing according to his rhythm. There seemed to be some pattern, but overall, it was still very blurry. Ba Tu, the operations director of Put Service Company, stood behind the young black man with a serious expression, but he was actually quite envious. The noise in front of him was a very outstanding reconnaissance ability user. He could capture monotonous and fragmented signals and complete the outline of the scene. He could also carry out high-power active interference. Through specific amplification equipment, his range of influence could reach hundreds of kilometers away. He could be described as a human-shaped radar and electronic interference system. Such talents were usually intercepted by the military early on, and so was noise. However, this guy had psychological problems. He claimed that he was big and couldn't control his crotch, so he should have been shot if he committed a crime in the military. However, he was taken out by a certain powerhouse and joined the powerhouse's team, continuing to cause trouble outside. Tonight was a joint operation between Put Service Company and that powerhouse team. According to the accurate information obtained from both sides' channels, the current temporary resident of the Santa Maria Charity Hall, the girl named Rui Wan, already had a net worth as high as 16 billion. Moreover, it was a discount from the shares of the Deep Blue World joint project. Whether the information was true or not, it would be up to his superiors to judge. As for how to interpret the value of the information, there was no need to go into detail. The most realistic situation was that every power would swarm over as the news spread. They must seize it as soon as possible. The branch in Sia City would also respond quickly. It was hard to say what would happen next. But tonight, because Ruewen had entered the secular world, she was placed in this charity hall. She was temporarily separated from the core protective network of the Sia City branch. Without a doubt, this was their best and last chance. Put Service Company was a medium-sized assassination service provider. It couldn't be considered to be at the top of the industry. Noise's metal hunting group was an extraordinary business, but there was still a considerable disparity when compared to the standards of the Sia City branch. Even if both sides joined forces, they still didn't possess the strength to directly confront Ouyang Qin and Her Majesty Empress Wu, too extraordinary. They could only catch them off guard by surprise. Of course, they also needed to have sufficient methods of shifting the blame. Only then could they guarantee that they would be able to escape unscathed regardless of the mission's success or failure. Ba too could roughly guess the inside of the powerhouse behind the metal hunting group. Aside from the standard of strength, Put's service company was chosen because they had a ready-made network and team in Xia City. They also valued their mercenary channels that covered every major city in East Asia and the vagrant tribes of the wilderness. They also valued their superclass shifting skills. It just so happened that Xia City had recently accepted several vagrant tribes. Dragons and snakes were mixed in them. There were a lot of desperados who were experts in their studies. Just as Batu was thinking about how to deal with the aftermath, someone walked into the workshop. The 2-meter-tall and sturdy body was very conspicuous. It was like the sound of metal plates rubbing against each other. There was a powerful oppressive force. "You still haven't released the map, Mr. Gang Xiong." Ba Tu greeted him. His gaze swept past the man's shoulder and neck structure, and he saw that Noise was jumping high and did not respond, so he said on his behalf, "It's raining now. The disturbance is probably not small." The person who came was the third in command of the metal hunting group, Throat Splitter Gang Xiong. He was a very famous veteran architect and a B-rank powerhouse. Rumor has it that he once had a large part of his throat torn off, but he relied on his tenacious life force to survive. He only underwent a physical transformation. From then on, he liked to tear people's throats when he killed them. He received the fierce name of Throat Splitter. After Gang Xiong entered the workshop, he took on the responsibility of commanding. He asked about the progress of the technical team. "How's the cracking going?" "We still need around 10 minutes. The security system of the charity hall is connected to the Santa Maria Church Hospital. It will be quite troublesome to hack in. Mr. Gang Xiong, we can take advantage of this time to have a brief tactical meeting." Motherf ****. Ba Tu choked. Fortunately, he knew that Noise had made a breakthrough. This black bro threw off the monitoring headphones. He straightened his buttocks and screamed in excitement. Noise was a scumbag, but his skills were top-notch. As he screamed, the meaningless color blocks on the screen quickly decreased. It was like a streaming video with an unstable signal. There were more lags and mosaics, but the basic outline of the video was already visible. Sand table. Gang Xiong signaled his assistant to do something. Very soon, the digital sand table that had just been placed in the middle of the room displayed a panoramic 3D projection of the Santa Maria Charity Hall. It was a translucent grayish-white color. But a few seconds later, Noise was more or less settled. The relevant data was transferred to the sand table, and bright colors were smeared over it layer by layer. At the beginning, there were some mosaics, but it quickly became clear. Especially in the special marked areas, a few human figures appeared. In the sand table projection, they were about the size of a finger, but their appearances were similar. The details were exquisite, and they were lifelike. They were the target of their target tonight. The charity hall was quite generous to temporary guests. The individual room on the first floor of the residential area was located at the corner of the building. Because of the flower bed, it could be considered a relatively independent half-enclosed courtyard. It was relatively quiet, and it was easy to make a move. Noise was ecstatic. "Damned weather, damned weather, damned weather. I'll let you guys experience it." The sand table projection was covered by a blurry curtain of rain as soon as he finished speaking. Ba Tu furrowed his brows, but didn't say anything. It wasn't bad to be able to restore the scene in a more complete manner. Through this curtain of rain, he could also see a few details. In this freezing rain environment, low-altitude drones can be eliminated. A large lump of ice will fall in less than a few minutes. Gang Xiong was expressionless. He tapped the edge of the sand table with his finger. What else? Ba Tu was stunned, and Noise began to laugh mischievously. At the same time, the blank area in the sky above the projection showed the avatars and simple information of the 5 targets. Professional bodyguards with ability, former military deep blue walkers, and this, a humanoid infrasound array. Every time Noise mentioned a person's characteristics, a circle of special colored areas lit up in the projection area. Qi Nikuan's sensing range is approximately 30 meters. God's ability is a bit worse, approximately 20 meters. But you have to pay attention to the car parked beside the dormitory building. It is equipped with extremely sensitive sensing equipment. It is recommended that you don't use high-powered equipment within a 2-kilometer radius. Within 100 meters, you can view him as a mental sensing expert. Only now did Batu know that Noise could actually capture information about the target's mental sensing range and reproduce it. It was truly inconceivable that his scouting ability could be displayed to such an extent. Noise had long since gotten used to this job. Of course, there's that youngster. Let's do a zoom. Alright, we need to expand the range of the model. At least 3 kilometers. That shameless little fellow has a sensing radius of 3 kilometers. Ba Tu was stunned. Radius or diameter? Noise chuckled. Are your ears not good? I said it was a radius. Everyone's luck is pretty good. We're separated by 2 blocks and diverged by 500 meters. Otherwise, we would be carefully considering how to resolve the awkwardness. Resolve the awkwardness. It should be said that they were running for their lives. While Ba Tu rejoiced, he still found it somewhat hard to believe. A sensing range of 3 kilometers. Could that fellow be an extraordinary? Noise ignored him and continued with his work. Next, dark scars hung down one after another in the projection area. Gang Xiong was rather interested. What is this? I don't know. In any case, it's very irritating. Back when I was stuffed into the military prison and had my ass busted, it was more or less the same feeling. Just this information alone can be sold for 1 million or 800,000 without a problem. If any of you dare leak it out, you'll be my enemy. Ba Tu's head was a bit swollen. If it really is 3 kilometers, any frontal operation is meaningless. Discussing this topic is really meaningless. Gang Xiong casually waved his hand, moving the 3 most threatening figures to one side and gathering the other 2 normal people in the middle. If these 5 people are all staying at the charity hall tonight, there's practically nothing we can do apart from forcefully attacking. This is the worst-case scenario. I'll consider canceling this operation. Ba Tu nodded. I agree. Gang Xiong sneered. That's not very likely. The charity hall isn't a hotel, and our pioneers aren't idiots. From Ba Tu's understanding, the so-called pioneer should be Quantum Holdings. According to the intelligence channels of the 2 partners, Luo Nan's group arriving at the Santa Maria Charity Hall had traces of Quantum Corporation's operations. Perhaps the other side also wanted to catch them off guard. Gang Xiong didn't care. We're only considering the latter scenario. This woman and her manager will leave. Maybe they'll give her a bodyguard. Maybe they won't. But no matter what, we're keeping an eye on her. A diversion. Don't speak nonsense. Gang Xiong swept his ice-cold gaze over. You must have forgotten this. His finger pointed at the core position marked on the sand table. Our target is this Rue Wen. She's also someone who dealt with Quantum Corporation's Deep Blue Walker Squad. It said that her close combat abilities are extremely strong. Do you want to verify it? Gang Xiong waved his hand without waiting for Ba Tu to respond. If we really touch her, our plan will pretty much be finished. So So we're only considering her. Gang Xiong flicked his finger, forming fine ripples on the projected virtual interface. It doesn't matter how many people leave. We only want her. Get rid of the bodyguard and send the manager's head back. Also, Noise, it's time for you to show off. We need to record an additional video. Is it the kind I like the most? Noise's wide mouth opened, revealing white teeth and a purple tongue. Together with the light and shadow on the sand table, it formed a strange image. Can I let loose and play? Steal, you can always get to where I itch the most. That woman's waist and legs are too great. She's definitely a good gun rack. I'll take good care of her. I'll just break her 2 arms. Gang Xiong didn't pay attention to Noise's wild imagination. He just zoomed in on the projected area again, making the map show a wider area to plan the subsequent route. Put Company's mercenaries will be useful after the attack begins. Stop them on the spot and delay the other side's rescue speed. It'll also give him time to watch the video. I hope you've made sufficient preparations. We've prepared 4 teams, and we've also prepared a wonderful disturbance. Ba Tu was quite confident in his profession, but right now he was a bit unsure. But Mr. Gang Xiong, are you sure you want to make a move on that person's sister? If you mess up, we're cooperating with your company because we like your operational abilities. We have a good target to frame, right? That's right, but... No buts. That young man himself is worth 16 billion, but he definitely shouldn't tie himself to the future power of this planet. He and his family don't have this right. Gang Xiong acted like a philosopher. His thick lips cracked open. If he can survive, he might even be able to foil our operation tonight. But for a long period of time, he'll have to face similar situations. I hope he can make a choice in time. Otherwise, he'll definitely be running for his life until there's nothing left to look forward to. Ba Tu didn't say anything, but he made up his mind to apply for a transfer after this. Otherwise, he might end up as cannon fodder. Gang Xiong concluded, what he does in the future has nothing to do with me. I need opportunities in time. I just want long legs. F*CK, 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 Noise responded loudly, getting more and more agitated. Gang Xiong still didn't care and continued planning the route. Our retreat direction is the sea. The closest place is the south coast. We can also avoid the Lilan district in the northeast. Oh, Gang Xiong, hurry up and start. My crotch is about to explode. As he spoke, Noise actually began to loosen his belt. He completely disregarded the current situation. This fellow was a complete pervert. I won't cut your thing, but I can pull out your throat. Gang Xiong finally issued a warning. Ba Tu let out a sigh of relief when he saw Gang Xiong restraining him. But he soon realized something. His expression quickly changed. Go to the sea. That's not what we originally agreed on. Yes. You want to enter the wilderness and use your outstanding ability to fish in troubled waters. And this is what we need. But if we head there directly, we need to traverse the entire city of Xia City. With the coverage of the psychic wave network, I don't think we have this opportunity. The sea is completely unobstructed. We can first enter the sea and then circle around the defensive line of the coastal defense forces. We can land ashore and cut into the interior from Mahjong. Although we'll take a long detour, we'll be able to catch many people off guard. Gang Xiong moved the core of the projection back to the charity hole. Before that, don't forget. Before we reach the sea, all we have are hostages and bargaining chips. The most important thing is how to get our hands on the target. Our boss is waiting in the open sea. Mr. Jin Tong. Ba Tu subconsciously felt a bit of reverence when he heard news of extraordinaries. Gang Xiong was even calmer. Boss Jean is coming from the sea. Of course we have to go to the sea. Otherwise, do you really think that Ouyang Chin and the martial monarch are watchdogs and ant queens? You won't take them out of their nest. Ba Tu was stunned for a few seconds before saying, of course it's great to have Mr. Jean Tong holding the line. But I'll have to talk to the higher-ups about the direction. Gang Xiong waved his hand. Do as you wish, but don't waste time. Ba Tu walked out with a gloomy face. He heard noises clamor behind him. How many times do you think I should fire? 70, 80, or 90 times. You believe I can do it, right? Shut up. No, no, no. You can't handle my enthusiasm. Ugh. A muffled explosion seemed to ring out in the room. The voice came to a screeching halt. Ba Tu rejoiced that Gang Xiong had finally taken precautions. When he closed the door, he turned his head to look, but he saw Noise's mouth open. Noise's hands were hanging down, and the waistband of his pants fell to the ground, revealing the toy inside. It was truly an eyesore. But the important thing now was that dark red liquid was surging out of Noise's mouth. His eyes, nostrils, and ears were all the same. Enemy attack, long-range sniper. This was Batu's first reaction. He instantly fell to the ground, and at the same time, he exerted force in his legs and moved backwards. He even pulled the door and closed it, blocking the sniper's line of sight. His reaction could not be said to be slow. But at this moment, blazing red light shot out, filling the room in an instant, blasting the closed outer door into pieces. Ba Tu also saw that the color of the projection area was already completely covered in blood red, and the corresponding outline was rapidly becoming blurry. But in that patch of blood red light, there was clearly a shadow that looked like a mix of a spider and a human. It was ugly and malevolent, as if a nightmare had leapt into reality. Facing this demonic shadow, Ba Tu actually did not know whether the red light came from the projection or from the void. He only saw Gang Xiong take a defensive stance. His body shone with a metallic luster as he roared and retreated. At this moment, Ba Tu had already smashed open the door of the opposite room and slid in. But in just 1/100th of a second, the red light had already covered him. The most terrible thing was that the energy of this red light did not rush outwards, but was pulling in the opposite direction. It was like an invisible whirlpool, forcefully pulling Batu's body towards the area where the blood red light was the thickest. That center might be the fatal gates of hell. Ah! Batu desperately stretched out his hand, wanting to grab the door frame of the opposite room. But the moment his fingers touched the frame, the suction suddenly disappeared. He slammed onto the ground, his head dizzy and his legs weak. He subconsciously turned around to take a look. The destruction of the equipment in the room was expected, but the destructive power was not as great as he had imagined. In front of the sand table, Gang Xiong stood with his back facing the door. He did not move, but his body seemed to be trembling non-stop. Mr. Gang Xiong? Ba Tu asked in a probing manner. Before he finished speaking, he saw Gang Xiong's enormous body instantly bend and twist. His muscles and bones shrunk into a ball amidst the fine tearing sounds. Then, it suddenly stretched, collapsed, and shattered. The same fate also included those operatives on the ground. An invisible force field covered the entire room, leading everything, but Ba Tu would rather believe that it was a demonic plate of flesh and blood that came from hell. The tearing sound that made one's teeth ache finally turned into a muffled explosion. Blood fog filled the room, and in front of the wantonly smeared colors, Batu's mind was blank. But in his wide-open eyes, a figure was reflected. The blood fog that enveloped his body gradually became clear. Gang Xiong. He knew he called the wrong name without saying it, but Batu still could not help it. Where the blood fog gathered, that person turned around. This was a middle-aged man with an ordinary appearance. Compared to the human-shaped giant bear Gang Xiong, he was much thinner, but his body was also very strong. He was naked, not wearing a single thread of clothing. His eyes swept across the room, and finally fixed on Batu's. Batu swore that he had never seen such a cold and empty gaze. Those eyes seemed to be filled with countless layers of black fog, and he could never see them clearly, but why did he feel that they were so familiar? But the selfie of these sisters was a picture of the sun shining brightly and the sea of palms. Especially the angle of her selfie, it was obvious that she was lying on a beach chair. The photo was taken from her chest, revealing not only her crazy long legs, but also her first-class curves. Under the sunlight, her white jade-like skin was even more dazzling. By Xinyan's self-evaluation of this photo, which was enough to make men lick their screens, was, enjoy the sunshine, cherish life. Zhang Yingying liked the post and commented, "Slut, who are you trying to seduce with old photos?" Ding dong, the other side actually replied within seconds, "It's obviously the latest new." Only then did Zhang Yingying realize that something was wrong. At this time, another voice rang out. It was still by Axian Yen, using this to seduce a 16-year-old boy. Will he be forgiven? Starting from 3 years, but for an old woman like you, it's a huge profit. Why does this sound so wrong? She sent him a private message. Where are you? Let's go shopping. Hee, in Chan City, you can't enjoy two kinds of holidays. When did you get there? Last night in Xia City. The weather isn't good, so hurry up and run. Zhang Yingying clicked her tongue. She felt that it was strange. She understood her friend's personality very well. The more senseless her words were, the more often there was a deeper meaning behind them. Did something happen? Bai Xinyan didn't say anything more to her. See you in spring. You have to seize the moment to enjoy life and the sunshine. It was as if she had a terminal illness. Tui. Zhang Yingying wanted to ask a few more questions, but at this time, the topic she had been paying attention to was updated. It was on the headquarters website. Her Majesty Empress, who had personally issued the RT-8313 Honor Points mission. It was supposed to be a historical number of people replying to the mission, and it was a benign exchange of pointers. But now, that loathsome REE and her inventions of Spray Pot Man and Summer Blow had led it astray. It had become a battlefield for territorial killings. If it weren't for the fact that she was at a critical juncture in her cultivation, Zhang Yingying would have long since taken command and gone to war with those scum from headquarters. She hadn't vented in time, so she had been holding her breath. She maintained a high degree of attention and intense obsession with the situation over there. But what the hell was with this pushed news? Who gave this news to? Holy crap. Exploration News Agency, Xia City, December 9th. The Xia City Security Bureau has confirmed on the evening of the 8th that riots occurred in many areas of the city, resulting in many deaths. The Xia City Police Department has posted on their official social media accounts that the riots occurred around 2200 hours on the 8th. They involve a wide area, and the composition of the participants is complex. At present, 47 people have died in the riots. Of the 24 administrative districts of Xia City, 12 have already entered a state of emergency. The press release was in a rigid format, but the explosive content made people dumbfounded. Zhang Yingying was like this. She had already climbed to the middle section of the cliff where she was temporarily resting in her little nest. She didn't have the mood to rest after seeing this news. She didn't even change out of her diving suit. She continued to climb and jump. She crossed over 2 layers of road and arrived at the very top of the cliff. It was also the highest point of the surrounding coastline. She climbed high and looked into the distance. She saw small patrol boats shuttling back and forth in the distant sea. She could even faintly see the silhouette of large warships on the surface of the sea even further away. She looked inland. There were very few vehicles on the Huanhai Highway. There were only a few armored vehicles. Could it be that there was a coup? Zhang Yingying subconsciously opened the topic page and unmuted the many discussion groups. Sure enough, whether it was the headquarters internet or the Xia City psychic wave network, the atmosphere had already exploded. There were far too many and too messy messages. Just RT-8313 alone had several thousand replies in a single night. There were many new memes interspersed within them. At first glance, it seemed as if it had been abandoned by history. Zhang Yingying could only start from the last floor she paid attention to. She climbed up the floors one by one to revise. She also read the news to make up for her lessons. It didn't take long for her to find the most important floor amidst the flood of replies. It was probably due to the excitement that caused his hands to tremble and his tongue to tremble. The speaker left behind a paragraph of confusing logic and subtle meaning. I don't know if it's drooping or not. I only know that Grandma's dripping sword is too terrifying. Her terror in Xia City is multiplied by 2. Fortunately, this message was accompanied by a more realistic video. Combined with the content of the video, it should be nighttime in Xia City. A large number of police cars and related police personnel were parked at the intersection of the streets. They were densely packed, but what was even more eye-catching was a corpse being carried out from the crowd. The person who recorded the video should be an internal member of the police. They even had the opportunity to do a close-up of the corpse's face. At first, the camera didn't capture the main point. It wavered on the corpse's fine armor, body characteristics, and other aspects. But soon, the person who recorded the video focused on the corpse's head. The eyes, nose, and mouth were all dark with blood. Especially the eyes. They were abnormally swollen. The crystal in one of the eye sockets had already exploded, leaving behind a black and red blood clot. What does this have to do with the dripping sword? It was a thoughtless message left by someone who didn't know the ropes. In the blink of an eye, people from all walks of life were educated. Please seriously watch Her Majesty Empress Wu's teaching video. This is how the dripping sword dies when it hits the eyes. This is the result of the dripping sword stabbing into the eye socket and then exploding after striking the brain. The cranial pressure rapidly rises, causing the 7 orifices to bleed. This person's brain is certainly already a lump of paste. There might even be brain juice in the blood flowing out of the 5 orifices. If you ask me, this appearance may look scary, but it's actually not the best. The most brilliant method should be to simply destroy the brain tissue, causing a person to die without a sound. But this method is too smoky. Although the last comment was a bit pretentious, it was still relatively pertinent. Quite a few people expressed their approval. But the facts proved that this pretentious criminal had revealed his true colors too early. The person who first uploaded the video soon posted a second video. Following the video, fully armed corpses were carried out one after another. The entire comments section trembled. How many people have died in total? From what I can see, there are no less than 15. I looked at it frame by frame. The video shows 17 people. At the end of the video, the camera turned to a skyscraper on the side of the street. The words Xia City XXX Hotel were written on it, proving the location. What happened to Xia City? The 17 people all died in the same way. They were all armed and armed personnel. The time of death seems to be relatively close. No matter how I look at it, it doesn't seem like they were tortured to death. In other words, the time of death of these people is very close. Perhaps it was only a few breaths of time. The one who used the dripping sword was actually a machine gun user, right? Some people didn't even have the safety on their guns. In the end, how simple were their deaths? Requesting ultra-clear pictures of the scene of the incident. As long as one stayed on this topic, most of them would be practitioners and enthusiasts of the dripping sword. What they loved the most was to analyze the structure of the dripping sword and unearth its potential. Therefore, when the two videos came out, the enthusiasm of the people rapidly exploded. And just as the people were discussing this scene spiritedly, it was already the 9th. In other words, it was around 5 o'clock in the morning. What followed was the news that Zhang Yingying had seen before. It made all the ability users who were paying attention to this matter understand the death toll and the scene of the incident were far from what they understood from the video. There were less than 20 corpses at the scene. Where were the rest? Did they die in the same way? Did I float in the air the wrong way? Zhang Yingying couldn't help but ridicule herself. The atmosphere of Xia City was a complete mess overnight. As for herself, she couldn't help but think of a certain spray pot man when she saw the dripping sword. But even if she thought about it with her toes, this sort of pure slaughter wasn't something a child would do. As for the machine gun-style killing technique, aside from Her Majesty the Empress Wu, she really hadn't seen anyone else perform a similar demonstration. Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, a new related push notification arrived. It was a link to a live broadcast. She subconsciously clicked on it and saw a capable and experienced woman give a thumbs up from behind the screen. Frontline dispatch, life combustion. I am a battlefield reporter who accidentally traveled to Xia City. Chapter 507. Zhang Ji sounded like she could fight, but she was a rather famous female streamer. She boasted that she was a war reporter, so she shortened it to Zhang Ji. But because her appearance was even more outstanding, she received the beautiful name of Zhang Ji. Her heart power wasn't outstanding, but she was very sensitive to news. She was also super bold, often appearing on the front lines of conflicts in the inner world. Many times she was in a very difficult situation. There were even a few times when she was shocked to death by the shock waves of a battle between experts. Many viewers loved this kind of tone. They called it immersion. Now, she was in Xia City. When the live broadcast officially began, Zhang Ji even played a short clip that she had made at the last minute. It was a general summary of the news and intelligence related to the Xia City riots from last night until now. The 20-second clip could be considered simple and to the point. Coupled with the bullet comments from some well-informed people in the live broadcast room, it basically explained the state of affairs through public channels clearly. But in these 20 seconds, Zhang Yingying couldn't help but pout. She had no prejudice against Zhang Ji, but she wanted to see the real thing. What was the point of Shui Man's live broadcast? Fortunately, Zhang Ji soon officially appeared on the screen. Right now, Xia City was still raining. A thin layer of ice had formed on the ground, but Zhang Ji didn't hold an umbrella. She just wore a windbreaker that seemed more suitable for living in the wild. She stood in the rain and began the live broadcast. She spoke very quickly, but her enunciation was clear. Good morning, friends. Xia City is currently in a state of emergency due to reasons known to all. This highly effective killing mode suspected to be the dripping sword is very eye-catching. Many friends hope to obtain more detailed information. But I must be honest. I originally didn't prepare for this live broadcast. The reason is that I didn't gather enough explosive information. Until 3 minutes ago, I unexpectedly encountered an opportunity. Zhang Ji used a floating selfie tool to broadcast. The operation was simple and flexible. She turned her head and the camera automatically followed, turning to the opposite side of the street. Across the street is the Santa Maria Church Hospital. I previously obtained reliable information from the Xia City Police. Please note, this isn't that opportunity. This is just a routine process of gathering material. The live broadcast room was immediately filled with blood-red words. Zhang Ji is playing tricks again. Kill this malicious person. If you continue to ruin my character, lying in the hospital won't be the limit. Zhang Yingying rolled her eyes when she saw that the main topic was still not being discussed. She immediately exited, leaving only a small interface and sound effects on the screen as she continued to climb through the RT-8313 mission thread. A few seconds later, Zhang Ji's voice continued. According to the police report, inside Santa Maria Church Hospital, there was a case related to last night's so-called riot, and many corpses were found. The time of death was around 22 to 22:30 last night. Now, let me highlight something important. The time of death reported in the police video circulating on the internet was also around 22 to 22:30 last night. Zhang Yingying, who was studying upstairs, was stunned for a moment. She switched the interface back. The live broadcast room also switched to a map of the administrative divisions of Xia City. There were 2 circles and a line drawn on it. Santa Maria Church Hospital is located in the southern city district of Xia City. The location shown in the police video is located in the Nader district to the northeast. The straight line distance between the 2 locations is 48 kilometers. Zhang Ji had done quite a bit of homework over the course of the night. She used her usual high speed of speech to pour in a lot of useful information. She finally revealed the value of this live broadcast. Now that I've said this, I might as well expand a bit. According to the internal report, the police have discovered 47 corpses. They are distributed in 4 locations. Aside from these 2 locations, there are also the Pingjiang district and the Riverwu district. Those 2 locations are on the west side of Xia City. They are far from each other. If we draw a one-way route and pass through these 4 locations, the distance will reach 149 kilometers. Okay, let's get to the main topic. After the map marked out a few relevant locations, it immediately disappeared and Zhang Ji's figure appeared once again. She pulled down her half-wet hood, as if she was deliberately covering her face. She appeared very cautious and cautious. Just like before, I don't know if today's live broadcast will be able to proceed smoothly. After all, this doesn't depend on me. It depends on luck, as well as the heart of the target god. The live broadcast room immediately spammed with 666. The audience used this ancient method to encourage and applaud Zhang Ji's continuous death-seeking behavior. Who do I need to tail today? Oh, Yang Qin, since he's in Xia City. Isn't it better to just go to Shangding Building and knock on the door? Then Her Majesty Empress Wu. If I may be so bold, you guys are off topic, okay? Zhang Ji didn't care about what was going on in the live broadcast room. She took a deep breath and walked across the street. She had only walked halfway when her figure suddenly stopped. She almost reflexively lowered her head. And at this moment, the selfie lens intelligently shifted and locked onto the opposite side of the street. There were 2 people walking over from the sidewalk next to the hospital. The audience in the live broadcast room naturally focused their attention over there. Through the curtain of rain, they could see that the 2 people were both men. They weren't too old either. The one walking in front looked to be in his early 20s. He wore a thin sweater in the -10-degree weather. He had a youthful and sporty style. The colors and styles of his pants and shoes seemed to be a random mix and match. There wasn't any order to it. In comparison, the young man in his early 30s was a lot more mature. He was also a lot more particular. He had a robust buzz cut and a casual suit. Although it was simple, it gave off a very stylish vibe. However, it was this relatively older stylish man who was holding an umbrella for the young man in front of him. This seemingly odd combination happened to be walking in the opposite direction of Zhang Ji. The distance between the 2 was rapidly closing. The majority of the audience in the live broadcast room didn't see the background of these 2 people. They didn't understand why Zhang Ji was acting so nervous. However, the highly interactive mode quickly pushed the answer to the most conspicuous position. Holy crap, Tian Bang. Tian Bang. That blood prison. The number one person below the transcendence. This isn't tailing, it's a collision. The audience in the live broadcast room instantly became excited. Blood-prisoned Tian Bang was undoubtedly one of the strongest people in recent times. He had a solid battle record of directly killing Mo Luan. He also had a military background and held a large number of troops. In terms of destructive power and influence, he was even more astonishing than some of the lone transcendents. Many channels were saying that if Tian Bang was given a large group of 50 or so deep blue walkers, he could even kill transcendents with the support of the integrated, formatted domain and escape unscathed. Because of this, busybodies called him the number one person below the transcendence. He was the signature of the military. Amidst the commotion in the room, Zhang Ji whispered, "Oh, this is the chance." When faced with this kind of situation, other people would have to consider the consequences. However, Zhang Ji was able to occupy a position in the inner world in such a traditional way because of her decisive action. She only used 1/10 of a second to digest her astonishment. Then she charged straight ahead and opened her mouth to say, "Hello God Tian. I'm the live broadcast host of the Zhang Ji Frontier Project. I'm called, How Long Can You Last With This Toy?" Faced with the woman who came out from the side and the filming equipment floating in the icy rain, Tian Bang's reaction exceeded almost everyone's expectations. Especially his performance of opening his eyes wide and tilting his head to look at the camera. He was the first to appear before the eyes of all the ability users watching the live broadcast. Wow, so cute. Zhang Ji has been instantly killed. What a dirty line. This was the first time the vast majority of people saw Tian Bang. It was hard to imagine that this major general of the military, who had killed a veteran B+ rank powerhouse, was actually such a down-to-earth young man. The live broadcast page immediately flooded the screen. At the same time, they expressed delight in Zhang Ji's misfortune. As for the dripping sword, the chaos in Xia City, and other such matters, they were actually secondary. But they never imagined that Tian Bang would take the initiative to extend his hand after saying the words Zhang Ji. Zhang Ji. Right? I've admired you for a long time. It's my fortune to meet you today. His genteel words coupled with his courteous and respectful attitude were like a wondrous peak in the clouds. Although it was right in front of her, it was hard to fathom her entire appearance. Zhang Ji had lost all initiative from the very first second. She stupidly extended her hand and shook hands with Tian Bang. "Do you know me?" "That's right. Frontline report, life ignition. I've seen many episodes of your Zhang Ji Frontier. After all, it involves many powerhouses, including first-hand material on extraordinaries. It's full of reference value. It's very useful to me." Zhang Ji was an ace streamer who had experienced many trials and tribulations. But when she heard Tian Bang's evaluation, she still couldn't help but feel a bit dazed. This was undoubtedly an extremely high level of praise and affirmation. Just these few words alone would cause her value to multiply. And because of this, her face flushed slightly. Her brain was a bit sluggish. She even forgot to say thank you. And all of these reactions were fed back to the live broadcast room through the camera. Wow, a soulmate. There's such a character among the burners. Super warm guy is a sure kill. Zhang Ji, steady. Don't throw yourself at him. Hurry up, wash yourself clean and get married. The live broadcast room was like a festival, and Tian Bang was gathering fans like crazy. The vast majority of people had forgotten their goal in watching the live broadcast. There were random greetings to Tian Bang, and there were also people who encouraged Zhang Ji and Tian Bang to tour Xia City hand in hand. In short, the topic was a complete mess. That's enough. As a member of the audience, Zhang Yingying had the urge to switch to another page. And at this time, Zhangji, the streamer, had actually calmed down. Even though the live broadcast was superb, from a professional point of view, she was completely being led around by Tianbang. For an outstanding streamer who pursued independence and excitement, this was absolutely intolerable. She secretly bit the tip of her tongue, waking herself up from her dazed state. Her mind spun like lightning, and she took advantage of the situation to say, Major General Tian's healing power is superb. He's even more amazing than a large number of psychologists I've seen. By the way, I just saw you come out of the hospital. Tianbang was all smiles as he interrupted her. It wasn't the hospital, it was the charity hall attached to the hospital. I just went to see a friend, but the door was shut in my face. The topic had flown off again. Under these extraordinary circumstances, who would believe that Tianbang, as a representative of the military, would specifically go to a case-related area just to see a friend? Tianbang's slippery manner made Zhangji feel quite defeated. Interviews and the like really weren't her forte. She should have followed the public opinion and tailed him. However, Zhangji was a bit curious. What kind of friend would a character like Tianbang have at the charity hall? And why would he bluntly shut himself in? Could it be that he was a super volunteer hidden in the city? After thinking for a bit, Zhangji probingly asked, that friend of yours, he's not here? He's not seeing any guests. I'm thinking that it's probably because he didn't bring any gifts to visit. So I'm preparing to mend the pen after the sheep is lost. I'm going to help him kill a few people to make my attitude clear. Chapter 508. Tianbang didn't refuse Zhangji following him. He tacitly agreed to the live broadcast, but he didn't actually kill anyone. Instead, he swallowed the vicious words he was about to spit out without a change in expression. I was just joking. Don't take it seriously. My words sound like I'm destroying people. I'm destroying you first, okay? Zhangji ridiculed him in her mind. At this time, under the curtain of rain, Tianbang was strolling along the sidewalk. The man with the buzz cut beside him seemed to be a subordinate officer called Zhu Ling. He was meticulously holding an umbrella for Tianbang. God, hurry up and get things on the right track. Zhangji tightened her jacket. She felt the freezing rain grow colder and more bone-piercing. But she couldn't let go of this opportunity. After a few steps, she finally asked a question she had been suppressing in her heart for a long time. Major General Tian, what do you think of the riot in Xia City last night? From a professional point of view, can you give us your opinion on that killing method that seems like the dripping sword? Tianbang laughed and shook his head. Zhangji, we're familiar with each other, right? This again. Zhangji didn't want to beat around the bush, but she had no ability to refuse Tianbang's seemingly polite but actually forceful approach. Yes, yes. Then, I'll be impolite and correct a mistake. You said last night's riot in Xia City. That's incorrect. Ha! Zhangji blinked. Are you saying that the riot is still going on? I'm saying that as long as the Xia City government hasn't lifted the state of emergency, the riot will continue. Even if it doesn't erupt for a while, the seeds of an eruption will be planted at any time. Everyone should have faith in the judgment of the government, right? It sounded reasonable, but it didn't feel right. Tianbang faced the camera and seemed to be very cooperative with the live broadcast. Currently, Xia City has tightened entry procedures. Quite a number of people will be denied entry to the city. It's very likely that everyone will make a wasted trip. It's fine if it's a wasted trip, but you might even lose your life. That's not worth it. So, it's best to be cautious if you want to travel, visit friends, or do business in Xia City. Zhangji never knew that the Grand Blood Prison was a chatterbox. She struggled to find valuable information from Tianbang's words. But before she could ask, Tianbang took the initiative to change the topic. Oh right, you said the Dripping Sword massacre in Nade district last night. Has it spread to the entire world? He looked at the camera innocently. However, the live stream viewers who had been led around in circles were no longer buying it. Continue acting. Stop acting cute. He's a big shot in the military, he doesn't know. Hee. If he doesn't know the inside story, I'll cut off his head and feed it to Zhang as a chamber pot. Zhang rejected the human head chamber pot. She carefully tried to maintain the direction of the conversation. There are at least tens of thousands of replies to the RT-8313 mission post about the dripping sword technique. I think this matter has already spread throughout the Wilderness Explorers Association. Tian Bang shook his head and sighed. RT-8313, how nostalgic. Back then, I was also a pure-hearted youth who fawned on Her Majesty Wu Huang. Because of the nature of my ability, my dripping sword technique was very ordinary, but I had some experience with the hard-burning blade. Here he comes again. The viewers in the live streaming channel were furious. The passerby fans who had just formed a circle were instantly blackened. We've circled around to the burning heart blade. Are you bragging? Zhang, don't give him another chance. Uncle Police, hurry up and drag this chatterbox away. Someone shouldn't be called Tian Bang. Call him Tian Quan. Sure enough, eating too many donuts is bad for your health. The live streaming channel was flooded with donuts in an instant. Zhang felt that she had already lost control of the live streaming channel. Fine, she had never been the type of streamer who had strong control. Her most outstanding ability was still courting death. She clenched her teeth when faced with the slippery Tian Bang. She directly courted death. Major General Tian, you specifically mentioned Her Majesty Wu Huang. Are you implying that the commotion in Xia City is related to her? Tian Bang stared at her with wide eyes. In the end, he clapped his hands and said, as expected, you have the attributes of a reporter. Your imagination is quite admirable. Why don't you explain it in depth? Zhang wasn't afraid of anything since she was already madly sprinting along the path of courting death. She no longer paid attention to the live streaming channel. She just repeated the analysis of the locations and distances she had done before. Then she concluded, the 4 locations of the crime are practically the same way of death. Although the time of the crime is extremely close, it is possible to accomplish all of this within half an hour if one has astonishing movement speed. In reality, there is no need to use an extraordinary. A B-rank powerhouse, whose specialty is speed, is more or less the same. The true difficulty lies in the raindrop sword. And to be able to use the raindrop sword as a machine gun. Her Majesty Wu Huang is the inheritor of the technique. She should have more information than others. Zhang shrunk back in the end. It was true that she wanted to create big news, but as a reporter, she would be punished by the heavens if she sang a one-woman show. At this time, Tian Bang sighed. Zhang, you don't have enough material. You must know that there are some matters that exceed the scope of normal logic. For example, when it comes to the time of death. I can tell you with great certainty that there is no such thing as half an hour. According to the scene surveillance obtained by the police, the time of the crime at the 4 locations you know of is within 5 minutes of the first and last time. Tian Bang extended his hand and spread his fingers apart. He flipped them in front of the camera so that everyone could see clearly. 5 minutes. Also, the crime locations aren't limited to the 4 locations you know of. There is an even more exciting one nearby. Zhang and I will take everyone there to experience it. Donut, Tian Bang had finally revealed valuable information after being shrouded in mystery. He had even overstepped his boundaries and seized the anchor's position. There was no doubt that the continuous news had a considerable impact on the logic of the live broadcast participants. Zhang Yingying, who had been paying attention to the live broadcast, entered the office's work group and sent 2 rows of dumbfounded emojis. Of course, she didn't forget to send the live broadcast link. Did Her Majesty really make a move? Why do I feel like it makes sense? Ying, why are you putting the blame on Her Majesty? It doesn't matter if it's Her Majesty or not. I think it's more appropriate to ask Boss Luo what he means. I seem to have exposed something. Sure enough, there are people who think so, right? Children who tell the truth deserve a spanking. So I'm not the only one who thinks so. More than one person plus one. More than one person plus 2. Cowards who don't dare to tell the truth are shivering in the corner. 10 days of seclusion had indeed been abandoned by the world. Zhang Yingying was full of question marks. Finally, she couldn't help but send a message in the group. Boss Luo. Luonan. What's up with him? Soon, a large amount of information poured out from the work group. Zhang Yingying only glanced at it twice before she sunk in. The strong wind and freezing rain fell from the high cliff, hitting her face with a slight pain. She didn't pay attention to it. It was during this process that her expression gradually darkened. 2 minutes later, Zhang Yingying gave Bai Xinyan a call. However, the friend she had just been interacting with for fun not too long ago had completely disappeared. Some time later, Tian Bang and Zhang Ji crossed 2 street blocks and arrived at the rumored crime scene. This place had indeed been placed under layers of police surveillance. There were no other people in the enormous office building aside from police personnel. With Tian Bang there, the group entered the office building without a hitch. However, Zhang Ji still put on a serious expression for the sake of avoiding trouble. She did her best to match the military style of Tian Bang and Bai Xinyan. Even though Tian Bang himself didn't have such a temperament to speak of. The crime scene was located on the 75th floor of the office building. There were already police personnel standing guard on this floor when the 3 arrived, but there weren't many relevant technicians. The investigation work had yet to officially begin. Zhang Ji had just stepped out of the elevator when she suddenly saw a corpse lying on its back in the corridor. The time of the crime at this scene. It's as you think. It's pretty much the same as other places. It's been almost 10 hours. Isn't the scene preserved a little too well? Because the police really did just get the news. Got the news. Tian Bang faintly smiled. He led Zhang Ji around the corpse and into the studio of the first crime scene. The room was a mess, but it basically maintained the same appearance as last night. It wasn't damaged. There were some splashes of blood on the floor and the workbench, but there were no other corpses. Since Tian Bang was cooperating, Zhang Ji didn't hold back. She quickly recorded the surrounding situation and even gave the corpse a close-up shot. The people in the live broadcast room were all ability users. They had a high tolerance for corpses, but they were a bit more curious. Who knows this person? Why did Tian Bang come personally? Passerby. I've never seen him before. Xia City has come out to receive guests. Has anyone seen him before? Zhang Ji, reach out and check the rigidity of the corpse and the livor mortis. This wasn't the first time Zhang Ji had done something like this. She turned to look at Tian Bang. Can I? If Tian Bang agreed, she would make her move. However, Tian Bang sent her a smile. There's no need to go through so much trouble. I still have basic information. He turned his head and the buzz-cut man Zhu Ling reported the relevant information, but Tuesday head of Pot Service Company Xia City Branch Operation. Ability level C+. This person died at 22:13 on the evening of the 8th. From the information provided by Pot Service, the company's partners, subordinate operation teams, and mercenaries also died and went missing at the same time. A total of 42 people. Zhang Ji was stunned when she heard this number. She immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. Have these people entered the official statistics? They haven't. But this place is very close to the Santa Maria Church Hospital. The people who died there are two different groups from Putt Service Company. The people in the hospital are members of another company's operation team. In fact, the Santa Maria Church Hospital itself is indirectly controlled by that company to handle some special affairs. It's a pity that the core members were all wiped out last night. Tian Bang waved his hand. The hospital probably can't continue operating now. There's still a lot to be done. The live broadcast finally entered a virtuous cycle with the continuous explosion of explosive news. 666666. I think I'm seeing the faces of Xia City's officials who have nothing left to live for. 47 plus 42 is equal to 99. One more and they'll be slaughtering 100 people. The first 10 died early. You'll help kill the other 10. Even so, it's still extremely fierce. Just which great god is it? Hurry up and retract your divine ability. At the end of the year 2096, a great demon has finally seized the position. Xia City can be said to be the #1 demon den. There's nothing wrong with a demon den. Demon your mother. Cave your sister. Xia Chui, open up. You blind bastard. Didn't you see Donut just say a bunch of operation teams and operation teams? Also, Putt Service Company is a professional assassin and mercenary service. They have a bunch of F*King armed personnel. They clearly want to stir up trouble. In the blink of an eye, the live broadcast room turned into a killing field. After Zhang Ji recovered from her initial astonishment, she keenly grasped a few sensitive points. How can Batu's time of death be accurate down to the minute? It's not a problem to be accurate down to the second. There's surveillance. There was nothing wrong with Tian Bang's answer. He even had Zhu Ling show it to Zhang Ji. Thus, Zhang Ji watched the entire process of Batu dodging, sucking back, struggling, and finally lying on his back like a corpse from the surveillance video. The surveillance video showed that it was indeed 22:13 last night. But, where's the person who did it? There's only a portion of the surveillance video in the hallway. That person never walked out. This style of doing things was truly too hateful. Zhang Ji calmed herself down. Her gaze and the camera turned back to Batu's corpse. Whether it was her or some of the viewers in the live broadcast room, they all discovered one thing: Batu's death wasn't due to his eyeballs and brain exploding. This person's heart had collapsed. But for the 32 mercenaries downstairs and the surrounding streets, the cause of death is definitely the dripping sword. Zhang Ji was startled. That's 33. There's still 9. Nominally, they're missing. But, Tian Bang extended his hand and circled around. They're all here. The DNA of 9 people was tested in the bloodstains in the room. Basically, it can be explained that their corpses didn't exist. All that's left is this. He bent down to pick up a twisted metal structure on the ground and casually tossed it. It was unknown who took the lead in the live broadcast room, but a series of dumbfounded emojis appeared. No other words were said. Zhang Ji asked, "What do you mean by no corpses exist? Is that they were swallowed by something? Oh, a mutant." Tian Bang gave her a thumbs up. Your imagination is rich and reasonable. I actually hope that's the case. At least there will be less trouble. However, this twisted steel throat should have come from the metal hunting group's Gang Xiong. Even though that fellow was a bit stupid, he wouldn't go so far as to let a mutant swallow him and 8 ability users into its stomach without making a sound in the bustling city area. That's why I say that the current world is becoming more and more dangerous. Don't you think so, Sister Yuan? Tian Bang suddenly laughed and casually tossed the metal throat aside. He opened his arms and walked toward the door. There was a woman in professional attire there. She stepped over Batu's corpse and walked into the room. Behind her was a group of professionals in police uniform. Chapter 509. Long time no see, little sister Yuan. Come hug me. Hello. Did I call you little sister? There are so many people here. I'm too embarrassed to call you big sister. You're 15, I'm 20. You're 20, I'm 25. So what if I call you little sister? I called you big sister because I thought you were a bit pitiful when you first joined. Now that you've made a name for yourself, can't I set things right? Tian Bang entered in to follow and strike up a conversation after the woman in business attire entered the room. He chattered incessantly as if he was afraid that others wouldn't know of their relationship. He didn't pay any attention to the other police personnel. His actions were effective. Zhang Ji's camera followed them from beginning to end. The live broadcast room soon focused on them and there were bullet comments. They look like childhood sweethearts, full of adultery. Who is this? He Yuan from the Xia City branch. A retired burner from the military. She's currently the most powerful person under the Iron Triangle. That's right, that's right. It's her. She basically does routine work. And she's a fair, rich, and beautiful woman. You know about Kong Tianhe? She's the successor of a military aristocratic family. Officer He, she's high. Be careful, Boss Luo. What do you mean by that? The atmosphere in the live broadcast room was cheerful, but Tian Bang was already chatting to death. He helplessly raised his hands in surrender when faced with He Yuan's piercingly cold gaze. Okay, let's talk business. You saw the situation. If you had obsessive-compulsive disorder, you wouldn't be happy seeing this scene. It's clearly the same group of people, but the result is 3 ways to die. Their entire body was smashed and swallowed. Destroying hearts and taking lives doesn't have any excess power. Only the vagrant mercenaries under them can enjoy the same treatment as those on the outside. How do I say this? I had a rough idea of the severity of the situation before arriving at the scene. But now I find out that I clearly underestimated it. That person has no concept of killing people, right? Maybe it's like playing a video game. So they'll continue to die, right? He Yuan thought for a moment and finally responded, most likely they will if the matter isn't resolved. Tisk, you're so honest. It makes people despair. Just as he finished speaking, new information came in. He Yuan, Tian Bang, and several other police officers received the relevant information one after another. Only Tian Bang remembered that it was time for the live broadcast. He turned to look at the camera and read the information aloud. 4 people died at the Baibo Company's restaurant. An aircraft suddenly went out of control and crashed into the building at the entrance of the SCA branch office in Xia City. It was turned to dust by defensive weapons. There were around 7 to 10 people inside. The death toll from the riots in Xia City has officially broken 100. 100 slaughter, achieved. In essence, there was no difference between the deaths of 90 people and the deaths of 100 people. But in terms of statistics, 3-digit numbers were always more shocking than 2-digit numbers. This is a lawn mower. A large number of agree, approve, lawnmower +1 words of agreement immediately appeared in the live broadcast room. Finally, 100 floated across the sky as a conclusion to this matter. Compared to the death toll, Tian Bang and He Yuan were more concerned about the 2 new locations. Tian Bang scratched his head. It's Sunday today, and there's no overtime. I'm afraid these 2 groups of people were there to check out the situation and ended up like this. He already knows how to take precautions. Should I say that it's worth celebrating? This time, He Yuan did not reply. Previously, no matter how much Tian Bang nagged, she would always meticulously walk to the scene. Now, she arrived before the metal component that Tian Bang had casually tossed aside. She lowered her eyes and sized it up thoughtfully. Tian Bang sighed. It's most likely Gang Xiong. The surveillance shows that he and the other metal hunting group members entered here last night and never left. Someone in the live broadcast room typed a question mark. Steel Bear. It's Gang Xiong, not Bear. Donut already said it before. I heard it too. I'm completely confused by Donut. He mentioned it before, but I didn't pay attention. F*CK, a B rank died without a sound. 666666. The screen of the live broadcast room was spammed without any technical content. It drowned out some valuable discussion and information, and the gaudy bullet screen made people feel irritated. Damn it. Zhang Yingying was already beyond furious after her repeated attempts to contact by Xinyan failed. Even if she did not personally confirm it, she was certain of the nature of this matter. Did White Salt have a screw loose? What was she thinking? She hatefully exited the live broadcast room. She wanted to just turn it off, but after a moment of hesitation, she decided to keep it. She originally wanted to contact Luo Nan, but the number she got through was Bamboo Pole's number. Half a minute later, she leaped down the cliff, changed her clothes, and stepped onto the Huanhai Road. She used the privileges of the society and went through a friendly negotiation to borrow a police patrol car. She rushed to the city. On the way, she went online to check for information. The live broadcast room simply emptied the bullet screen, only looking at He Yueyin and Tian Bang's movements. On the other side, she opened up the RT-8313 mission thread and looked at the recent replies. It was clear that Zhang Ji's live broadcast had already become a hot topic. This place was also affected and was currently discussing the matter of Gang Xiong. But the traditional forum mechanism of posting and replying, as well as the group chat mode during discussions, could still carry a lot more information. Is Gang Xiong a member of the society? The metal hunting group is registered in the society, so he must be. Boss Jin Tong is probably going to explode from anger. Isn't Gang Xiong a B+? He's dead just like that. He's almost there. How many B+S are there in the entire world? It feels like they're endangered and rare animals like extraordinaries. It's fine if he's rare, but what the hell is he saying he's endangered? Less than 1,000. Less than 1,000. According to the Society's data, the vast majority of the 70,000 awakened were C rank. For example, in Xia City, there were only 14 registered architects out of the 1,000+ members. This number and ratio was second to none among the 88 branches under headquarters. Although headquarters had always been secretive about the number of ability users at B rank and above, the High Lord of the Eye of Secret Contract had made a famous judgment in the early years: masters are less than 1,000, and extraordinaries are less than 100. Weeds, flowers, and trees are scattered and difficult to form a forest. Master was the internal name of the Eye of Secret Contract. It referred to architects and B-rank powerhouses. This sentence didn't take into account the last two paragraphs. It meant that the estimated number of ability users in the entire world didn't even reach 1,000, and the number of extraordinaries didn't even reach 100. As one of the three great secret orders of the world, the authority of the Eye of Secret Contract wasn't inferior to that of the Wilderness Explorer Society. And its High Lord was ranked among the top 5 extraordinaries in the world. He was the kind of person whose spit was like a nail. Later on, someone confirmed with the High Lord of Secret Contract that there was another explanation for this sentence: architects and extraordinaries added together didn't exceed 1,000 in the entire world. And it had to be noted that this was an estimate that included the society, orders, individual investors, and even burners in the most extensive sense. Even if the society was a large organization with a lot of business, and all the heroes of the world came and monopolized half of it, there would still be no more than 500 people. At the very least, half of the B rank would be taken out. For a veteran powerhouse like Gang Xiong, it wouldn't be a problem for him to rank in the top 300 of the society. If he performed well, he could even rank in the top 200. If placed in the entire world, he would be at the level of the top 500. And then, he died just like that. Recently, the society's B rank has fallen a bit quickly. Let's not talk about Gang Xiong. There's also Snake Tongue. Sigh. I remember that Snake Tongue died in Xia City, right? No one responded to this topic, probably because it was a bit sensitive. It was also because at this time, someone copied a copy of the surveillance video that Tian Bang showed to Zhang Ji in the live broadcast room and forwarded it here. At the same time, they asked, God, please analyze. How in the world did Gang Xiong die? The video feels too fast. Is it my imagination? Someone replied, it's not your imagination. Looking at the video, it's most likely that he died in front of the pot company's operations supervisor. The latter has a very clear expression of horror. He probably saw the way Gang Xiong died. There's nothing else to say. It was certainly fast and ruthless. That's why he had such a reaction. A certain ID labeled Senior Intelligence Analyst explained a bit more in detail. If I were him, I'd be scared too. From the time the supervisor dodged to the time the shockwave broke through the door, to the time he sucked in air, struggled, went into a daze, and died, the span of time was 3.7 seconds. It was an instant kill, not only in name but also in reality. And looking at the scene, there aren't any obvious signs of confrontation. This proves that Gang Xiong was overwhelmed by power. At the very least, he was killed by powerful crowd control and explosive killing methods. Even if it was a sneak attack that caught him off guard, the difference in realms must exist. So, it's not the time yet. Look at this. The Senior Intelligence Analyst sent over a map. The map clearly displayed the situation of the high-end combat power of the Xia layer. Xia City has 14 B ranks and 2 transcendents. 6 of them have fleshly bodies that can be directly eliminated. This isn't a melee battlefield at all. Next, we'll eliminate those who don't meet the conditions of overwhelming and powerful crowd control and explosive. For example, Mr. Bai, who excels in hypnosis, Gao Meng, who draws talismans, and so on. Among the B ranks, only Old Yu and the Horn Demon's abilities are somewhat similar. But the Horn Demon offended Her Majesty Empress Wu. There's no way for him to return to Xia City in a short amount of time. As for Old Yu, I don't recall him ever killing anyone. Why don't you just say that there are 2 transcendents? That's the problem. Ouyang Chen has the style of a gentleman. He usually leaves some leeway when doing things. He wouldn't have such a great murderous nature. Her Majesty Empress Wu does things in a high-profile manner. She isn't afraid of people knowing what she's doing. Otherwise, this sort of situation wouldn't have occurred. Someone stabbed in from the side, there's still one more. Though he might be a bit inferior in terms of raw power, his danger level isn't low at all. The Senior Intelligence Analyst quickly replied, I know. You're talking about the legendary humanoid infrasonic array. If there were enough corpses left here without any external injuries, he would be the first person I would think of. But there isn't. This person's ability and the Devil Ray are 2 different matters. So in order to deal with him, we first have to kill the Devil Ray, right? So is off topic, huh? What I mean is, to kill a powerful person like Gang Xiong through the methods shown in the video, it's either a conspiracy of some Xia city that defies their natural instincts, or it's the work of some unknown powerful person. While the Senior Intelligence Analyst was still analyzing, someone had already skipped over his long-winded explanation and directly pointed to the previous piece of information. The person above certainly didn't read the internal police report. Last night, the crime scene in Pingjiang district was at some Cloud City water village. Rumor has it that it's where the Devil Ray was stored. I seem to have seen through something. I seem to have seen through something too. Look at that mother of asterisk cur. Someone's driving the tempo. Zhang Yingying hatefully sent a message in the private chat of the Psychic Wave Network. Bamboo Pole immediately replied, everyone's driving the tempo. Papercut sent a dizzy emoji, mother of asterisk cur, it's too messy. Red Fox followed closely behind his good brother, the dagger will be revealed soon. Watch the live broadcast. Bamboo Pole reminded once more. Zhang Yingying saw this and entered the live broadcast room. She only saw He Yuan and Tian Bang conversing there. She didn't react for a moment. What are they saying? The bullet screen. Look at the bullet screen. Fuck. Cragburst also joined the discussion and directly sent a voice message. Zhang Yingying opened the bullet screen again. What entered her eyes was a field of blood red. Someone was flooding the screen with bullet screens. They were all filled with 16 billion. After scrolling for almost 10 seconds, there was a sporadic comment. What the hell? Get lost. I can't even see Officer He's beautiful face. Admin, kick this trash out. But at the same time, there were people who expressed serious curiosity. What's the number after 16? Looks like 9. It's 16 billion. What's 16 billion? There's no problem with Kong Tianhe's assets being 16 billion. Is it Officer He's net worth? Marry me. It seemed that these bored-to-death audience members were about to lead the topic astray. It was very likely that it was the same person. He once again used blood-red words to flood the screen with numbers that most people couldn't understand. 2 out of 1,000, 2 out of 1,000, 2 out of 1,000. Soon after, another row of blood words drowned them out. Go ask, go ask, go ask. The direction of the topic in the live broadcast had finally been successfully guided. Alright. That trash has successfully piqued my curiosity. Zhangji, it's time for you to display your usefulness. Someone sent a crying laugh emoji. Find your target. Officer, he doesn't look easy to talk to. But what if Tian Bang is a smiling tiger? There's no mistaking the smiling tiger. My heart aches for my Zhangji. In a dozen or so seconds, the live broadcast room had already formed enough impetus for the host to do what they desired the most. Correspondingly, every bullet screen that was sent here was piled up with real gold and silver. For example, the forceful spamming of the screen to set the pace could only be achieved with honor points. Because of this, Zhangji needed to expend more effort to deal with changes that were beyond her control. This was also the most attractive aspect of her live broadcast, seeking death again, seeking death under the teasing of the audience, endlessly seeking death, and so on and so forth, until the game over. Frankly speaking, Zhangji already felt that the situation wasn't quite right. From the inside information she received to the conversation with Tian Bang, to the series of events that followed, it wasn't a coincidence, but it wasn't deliberate either. It was as if there was an invisible hand constantly correcting and guiding the situation to the direction they wanted it to go. Because of her fearless live broadcast style, Zhangji was also fortunate enough to come into contact with many of the top figures in the inner world. In her opinion, this feeling was familiar. It was as if she had bumped into the plan of some guru or some powerful scriptwriter. On one side, rationality screamed danger, and on the other side, the effect of the show was tumbling up. Between the two, she didn't need to hesitate at all. What's more, her team behind the scenes had already combined the information from various channels and sent her a rather reliable piece of information. Zhangji couldn't control herself the instant she saw the relevant information. Her eyeballs swiveled, and she first interacted with the audience in the live broadcast room. My team just got some news. A certain bastard who set the pace. Was it you? The atmosphere in the live broadcast room was full. Shut him down. Shut him down. Get out of the way. Zhangji's spear technique is coming. This spearhead is so sharp. I have a bad feeling about this. Light a candle for Zhangji in advance. Zhangji shifted her camera and swallowed imperceptibly. She hoped that the gossip just now could help her buffer a bit. She considered her words for a moment and tiptoed over to Tianbang and Yuan's side. She found an opening and suddenly asked, "There are rumors that the commotion in Xia City is related to a project led by Quantum Corporation. What do you two think?" Tianbang and Yuan weren't the only ones in the room. There were 5 or 6 people from the police force. Everyone raised their eyebrows when these words came out. Zhangji instantly became the focal point of everyone's attention. Tianbang didn't make any more donuts, but he still maintained his true nature as a smiling tiger. He beamed and didn't say anything. Yuan cast a cold and clear gaze over from the side. Zhangji adjusted the camera at the right time and gave her a close-up. Zhangji knew that if she were to say the following words, she would very likely offend Yuan and even the Xia City branch. But in the end, her habitual impulse suppressed everything. It said that Quantum Corporation is offering a reward of 2,000 of the project's shares as a reward for the recovery of the lost experimental body. The value of the shares is as high as 16 billion, and there's a lot of room for growth in the future. And that experimental body is currently in the hands of the Xia City branch. It's under the control of the branch's psychic genius, Luonan. May I ask, is this true? Zhangji only took 12 seconds to finish saying over 100 words. It was rare that every word was as fluent as pearls. They were clear and legible, without any mistakes or omissions. Yuan still didn't speak. Tianbang chuckled. "Zhangji, you switched professions to news broadcasting." Zhangji was already in full battle mode. "You said it's news. Does that mean this isn't a rumor?" Only at this time did the vast majority of the audience come back to their senses from the barrage of words. It really is a huge sum of money with 9 zeros at the end of 16. So that's how it is. F***CK 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 F***CK. It's disrespectful not to say it's 9 zeros. When's the nearest flight to Xia City? I'm in Luo City. Is there anyone going with me? We can split the reward in half. 1,000th is acceptable. I'm going to Xia City right now. Is it okay to sell coffins? Locals, please leave a message if you're willing to cooperate. Hurry up and look at the Starry Sky Club's mission system. The high-level area has already been updated. The number of people accepting orders has already broken 100. The bullet screen instantly exploded, drowning out the entire broadcast room. There was also the animation of flames burning the sky. It burned people's heads restlessly. And in this explosive atmosphere, a cold and calm voice cut through. The one who spoke was precisely Yuan. "I don't understand what you're talking about when you say experimental body. But, right now the society is carrying out protection work for an underage orphan girl. This orphan girl was abducted and sold at a young age. Later on, she was sold to an underground fighting arena controlled by a gang in the Riverwu district of Xia City. She was forced to engage in lethal, illegal combat. On the night of September 30th, this orphan girl was rescued by the Xia City branch. During this time, the orphan girl's extraordinary ability awakened. According to the Wilderness Explorer Society's protection procedures, the Xia City branch accepted her as an official member of the society. Zhangji's originally flying brain was a bit stuck when faced with Yuan's dark and penetrating gaze. She subconsciously replied, "Huh. Is she a member of the society?" The orphan girl's registration procedures for joining the society were already completed before midnight on September 30th. The society's relevant procedures were extended to before midnight on October 1st. There is evidence. The problem is that during the period of our rescue and protection, Quantum Corporation's subordinate, Sky Blue Security's Xiao City branch manager, Yen Yongbua, first used a weapon platform to attack our personnel. Then he dispatched the Deep Blue Walker combat team to intercept and kill them. He also openly used particle cannons and other prohibited weapons in the residential area of Xiao City. At the same time that our personnel were injured, he seriously damaged the safety and order of Xiao City. The Xiao City government has already issued a serious warning to Quantum Corporation regarding this matter and has handled it. The Xiao City branch has also negotiated with Quantum Corporation based on this. All processes and relevant documents have been recorded. Federation citizens can rely on their authority to access and read them. From the above, we can see that the orphan girl protected by the society is far from underage. Moreover, she was repeatedly sold. She doesn't have a legal guardian. Under this kind of background, what does experimental body represent? If she is an experimental body, I would like to ask, for the past 2 centuries, how does the principle of informed consent in human experimentation manifest? What position does Quantum Corporation hold here? Related missions, bounties, and bonuses. On what basis are they established? The Xiao City branch hopes to have a clear answer. The atmosphere in the live broadcast room began to turn from restlessness to stagnation. Someone muttered, "Why do I feel like this is a press conference?" It's not a press conference. It's a court. A court. Wouldn't it be better to just say it's an execution ground? No matter how the evaluation was, He Yuan's speech continued. According to the principles and regulations established by the Wilderness Explorers Society, the Xiao City branch will contribute their greatest strength to the safety and welfare of ability users. They will provide protection to the orphan girl to the best of their abilities. They will also cooperate with the government. According to the relevant authorization, they will carry out the most severe strike against all organizations and individuals that trample on the laws and regulations of related industries. This determination is unwavering. I also hope that the relevant people will abandon rumors, set their positions straight, and overcome their greed. Don't do stupid things that hurt your friends and please your enemies. Don't do stupid things that are like pulling grains out of the fire. Cough. Little sister Yuan, if you keep talking, then this really will turn into a press conference. Please take care of Miss Shanji's program. Tian Bang chuckled as he interrupted He Yuan's speech. He came over and stole the camera. I want to say it. Little sister Yuan has always done things in a thorough manner. You don't lack material evidence or witnesses. What? You're talking to yourself. You're making things up. You don't have witnesses. Didn't you hear it? You're not a witness. Hey, that police officer over there. I'm talking about you. The bald guy with the iron hoop under the hat. Stop staring at that piece of scrap metal. Come over here and be a witness, okay? You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.